think we're dumb. You want us blind and you want us drug. You want us poor while you get more of everything. But you don't get to tell me what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell me what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so I don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. You want us tricked, you want us numb. You want us scared and you want us stung. You want us shot and you want us bought in every way. You want our minds, you want our time. You want us framed up in your crimes. I hope you know that it's time to go and we're taking names. 'Cause you don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell us what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this dead away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. 'Cause we're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. We see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your
So my first day back from having a nice life, it's my honor to welcome three of the world's leading technology CEOs. And in the case of Larry Ellison, it's well beyond technology. He's sort of CEO of everything. He's an amazing man, an amazing business person. But to announce the largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America. As you know, there's great competition for AI and other things, and they're coming in at the highest level. We're joined by Oracle Executive Chairman Larry Ellison, SoftBank CEO, my friend Masa Yoshi-san, and CEO of OpenAI, and I would say the by far the leading expert based on everything I read, Sam Altman. So that's great that you're coming. in together. That's a massive group of talent and money. Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States, and very, very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately. This monumental undertaking is a resounding declaration of confidence in America's potential under a new president. Let me be a new president. I didn't say it, they did. So I appreciate that, fellas. But it'll ensure the future of technology. What we want to do is we want to keep it in this country. China is a competitor and others are competitors. We want it to be in this country, and we're making it available. I'm going to help a lot through emergency declarations, because we have an emergency. We have to get this stuff built. So they have to produce a lot of electricity, and we'll make it possible for them to get that production done very easily at their own plants if they want, where they'll build at the plant, the AI plant, they'll build energy generation, and that will be incredible. But it's technology and artificial intelligence, all made in the USA. Beginning immediately, Stargate will be building the physical and virtual infrastructure to power the next generation of advancements in AI, and this will include the construction of colossal data centers, very, very massive structures. I was in the real estate business. These buildings, these are big, beautiful buildings, are going to employ a lot of people. And physical campuses in locations currently being scouted nationwide. They're making their choices of locations. I think they have their choice.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants all Americans wearing wearable health devices. It's part of his effort to make America healthy again. And as CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson reports, there could be potential drawbacks.
Wearables are electronic devices that use sensors to collect real-time health data that can be transmitted to specific platforms so that you can analyze the information or share with your doctor. Studies show these wearables can help diagnose conditions while helping motivate people to adopt healthier lifestyles. That's why HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is promoting their use.
My vision is that every American is wearing a wearable within 4 years.
They're already seen on wrists in the form of fitness trackers and smartwatches. People use them to measure movement, heart rate, help detect sleep apnea, and glucose monitors that measure blood sugar.
I've personally had friends who've utterly changed their lives just from wearing a glucose meter. And they've lost weight, they've lost their diabetes, diagnoses, and you see this happen again and again.
Doctors often recommend wearables such as ECGs that monitor cardiac activity.
There have been people whose lives have been saved because their wearable devices were able to detect over the course of 24 hours an abnormal heart rhythm. That then brought them to their healthcare provider, who took a deeper look and found out that, yes, there is an anomaly, a problem going on right now with the heart.
Tech companies continue to expand options, such as this one designed to prevent sudden infant death syndrome, or this necklace to help improve posture.
We're about to launch one of the biggest advertising campaigns in HHS history to encourage Americans to use wearables. It's a way of people can take control over their own health.
Yet, alongside the praise, privacy concerns exist.
The citizens that are wearing these health devices don't necessarily know what information is being shared and whom it's being shared with.
For example, health companies could potentially sell data of certain patients, leading insurance companies to potentially raise their rates. That's why customers should be careful.
I think transparency from the company that is managing that data is a critical point for the patient to feel comfortable and understand what is actually happening with it.
Another issue involves accessibility. Kennedy says his agency is working on ways to make glucose monitors more available.
It's $80 a month. And, we're exploring ways of making sure that that those costs can be paid for.
So while studies show wearables can improve health metrics and even save lives, issues such as data sharing and affordability persist. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Thank you, Lori. Gordon, do you wear any wearables?
I don't wear any wearables, and that's because I'm concerned about the privacy of it. Who's going to have that data? Where is that data going to go? At the same time, there are these devices available to the home, whether it's a heart monitor that can plug into your home and give you a pretty accurate readout. Cardiologists say they're actually pretty good. I mean, they want to hook you up to their own machines in their own offices to make sure. But if you're looking for warnings about palpitations or warnings about AFib, they're absolutely wonderful devices. Anything to do with sleep studies, sleep apnea, having one of those devices monitor is a lot cheaper than going through a sleep study. The blood pressure cuffs, those are not hooked up to the internet, but widely available now. And that will keep track of your blood pressure, all of which is part of preventative health. And as we age, we have to look after these things. Those glucose monitors are game changers for people. So a lot of wonderful benefits. Mandate that every American should have it. No, the health privacy issues are tremendous to that. And could we see insurance companies taking that and charging different rates and all those kinds of things based on risk factors? The reality is they can do it now, but do you really want that volume of data going to somebody else, whether to a provider, and any provider, as we all know, can be hacked. So for privacy reasons, I don't wear them, but I love the convenience of having them available in
Their diet, about their physical activity, about the way that they live their lives. We think that wearables are a key to the MAHA agenda, making America healthy again. And we are going to, my vision is that every American is wearing a wearable within 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Following up.
What if I told you that nanotechnology, so small it's invisible to the naked eye, has quietly become a powerful tool for mass surveillance? Behind closed doors, classified government projects have developed nanoscale devices not only for medical breakthroughs, but for individuals on an unprecedented scale. These nano trackers, tinier than a grain of sand, can be dispersed through air, water supplies, or even embedded in everyday consumer products. Reports emphasize medical benefits, but declassified documents and whistleblower testimonies reveal a hidden agenda: comprehensive population monitoring. These devices operate passively, detection nearly impossible without specialized, high-tech equipment. The vast amounts of collected data feed into centralized analytics systems, enabling authorities to map movements, behaviors, and social networks in real time. This creates a surveillance web so pervasive and covert that evading it is nearly impossible, and most people remain completely unaware it exists.
A brand new study which was just published looked at the contents of a certain medical procedure which shall not be named. And in this study, the authors claim to have found artificial nanostructures, which they refer to as self-assembling nanostructures, which look like this. Now, these were only found in the mRNA-containing ones, and the shapes range from crystals, filaments, spirals, all the way to nanotubes. They found that the shape of these changed over time and were particularly responsive to external electromagnetic fields. But before you get excited, there are some serious problems with this study. First up, there's no publicly available ORCID record for this researcher, so we don't know if she's published anything in the past and what training she has. Next, she's a gynecologist, and whilst that might not necessarily be a problem, we really want this study being done by molecular biologists who have the resources and the tools at their disposal to be able to make sure this was a valid study. Next up, the lab isn't registered from anywhere that I can see, and therefore we have no way of knowing that it's actually a sterile environment. What this means is that things that we're looking at right here could simply be artifacts. With that in mind, whilst I'm not a scientist, I think we have to be very, very cautious about these results. But even if we discard the study as bunk, you might not know that there are numerous genuine expertise in the field who have found something very similar. They found 3D nanostructures in the shots, and some authors have speculated or said that they closely resemble carbon nanofibers and might be graphene oxide. Since graphene oxide was definitely not on the ingredients list, you might be wondering what the hell it was doing in there. And you might be amazed to hear what the science actually says about this. Let's just say that reality with graphene oxide for a very long time, particularly in the context of micro and nano robots. Now, you might be wondering, what are micro and nano robots? Well, these are basically tiny little machines, pieces of technology. They're invisible to the naked eye. You cannot see this, but these things can be implanted into the body either by injection, inhalation, or even through even specific cells. So for drug delivery, for altering gene expression, they have to be driven or powered by some kind of external energy source. This can be body heat, it can be UV light. Research is looking at external magnetic fields to power these things. And they can be used as what are called biosensors, so they can receive information from external sources. Think of it a little bit like a chip or like a tiny Wi-Fi router, which is in the cells, and it can literally absorb radiation and transmit information to external sources as well. On this topic, you can see from this paper, these researchers recently developed a remote controlled probe which was able to target specific cells. And it just so happens that graphene oxide is one of the key materials that they use for these nano-type robots. The field of research is more widely known as nanorobotics. It forms the basis of what is now called the Internet of Bio-Nano Things. You think of this as essentially a form of transhumanism. The Internet of Bio-Nano Things is envisioned to be a network of nanoscale and biological devices, so-called bio-nano things, communicating via non-conventional means. So this is molecular communications in non-conventional environments, e.g. inside the human body. The main objective of this emerging networking framework is to enable direct and seamless with biological systems for accurate sensing and control of their dynamics in real time. That means using robots to control living systems, i.e. the human body. Okay. Of course, this new frontier of technology has been framed as a medical breakthrough which will revolutionize treatment of chronic disease. However, it's important to realize that this hasn't just garnered interest from within the medical field. Players who are funding this research include the likes of DARPA and other military intelligence agencies. And when you hear what they want to use it for, and trust me, you do not want to miss this story.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Real ID. So
yes, Real ID is in effect May 7th. It started back officially 2005, correct?
2005 from the 9/11 commission hearings and stuff. So we got the 9/11 happened, and then simply. And then in 2005, this thing got passed for, it's called Real ID, and it is a federalized identification system that everyone in the nation will have to have in order to basically fly domestically. But they've been trying to pass this thing since the 80s.
Oh, weird.
So from 1980s, they've been trying to federalize identification to no avail because they said it is bordering on like privacy issues, on like low income areas, just because getting a new ID and all that stuff, that's it's not easy.
And then a terrorist attack happens.
And then all of a sudden,
and if you don't agree with this, then you don't want our planes safe. And how would you? Are you anti-American? If you, I mean, I'm telling you, if you don't want to get a real ID and turn birth license, all this stuff, and get it digitized in one digital database for your whole government, you're terrible. You're not American.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you not want their planes to be safer?
Yeah,
that's what it's all about, right?
It's literally a ninja's gaslight.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think it really is wild that, like, I mean, is this normal? Maybe is this just the next phase? But we've been doing flight travel for a really long time.
Yeah.
Nothing like 9/11 has happened ever since in the past 20 years.
I know it.
And it's, like, but that's not going to fix it.
We're basically breaking it down on the show in two parts. He's talking about how much it resembles the Chinese, like the beginning implementations of the Chinese. And because we're looking into it further. So basically, the Chinese social credit score is a real thing.
Yep.
It's implemented in China. They had already passed a nationwide identification system. So everyone has something very similar to the Real ID in China. The social credit score. And basically, if they gave like a list of things that happens to lower your credit score. So like court rulings, so like refusing to pay debts, criminal convictions, traffic violations. So I saw one thing, jaywalking can ruin your social credit score.
And those cameras catch it all too.
Everything.
Yeah,
They
they're
have
ultra surveillance.
You just get a ticket in your mail a month later, and you're like, what?
Yeah. Online speech or protest involvement.
Wow.
So that could just range from anything, really. That's so broad. Then unpaid taxes or fines.
Didn't Meta get brought over there too? Like that's official?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Maybe it may be not official, but we were talking about how Zuckerberg was in conversation with China and making exchanges.
I think they have not. It's Meta in, yeah.
But it would be an additional tool for that surveillance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But if your credit score gets lowered, that bans you from flying on a plane, a train, sometimes even a bus.
Automobile.
It keeps you from enrolling your children in private schools, applying for certain jobs or promotions. This one was a crazy one. They can slow down your internet speed. Just little inconveniences to make your life miserable. And then public shaming via government lists or media alerts. So I saw this one thing where they literally have like a LEDs. And like it's like public shaming.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so
it's not the type of world we want to live in.
No.
I mean, there's a newspaper in Oklahoma that's called Jailbirds, and all it is that week's mugshots of all the casts. And that alone is crazy.
Yeah.
People like sit around and they look at it, and it's shameful.
Yeah.
But there's tiny things. You get a parking ticket. You jaywalk. You're late. You don't guess what? You don't get a job.
Too.
Yeah, you litter. Which
I'm about that one.
Which I'm all for fines, but public like shaming. Like this is we're getting to a weird spot, and I don't know. This is, I mean,
and that's a far step from the Real ID, but it is, I think, is a beginning step.
But they started somewhere.
Yeah,
and this isn't gonna just stop. Like this.
Yeah.
Privacy thing, like they're blurring the line constantly. Little freedoms here, this is the way we're living now.
But
you know,
they do more than negative reinforcement too. They do positive reinforcement. I saw a video of a dude.
that's how they'll push it. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a dude in a taxi and he was like asking questions about the Chinese government, and the dude in Chinese, you know, like the cop, like reporting this person because apparently China considers people who are immigrated in or there for vacation. But if they start asking these questions, but there's literally an immediate financial reward for turning somebody like that in. But you think about, like, if the goal is, you talked about like lower income sectors, if the goal is to get those people on board with this system, it's like, hey, if you catch someone jaywalking, we're going to drop $500 in an account.
Oh yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm in.
gives
Yeah.
everyone that, and that's the thing. It'll be
It's just
like
a police state at that point, which China is.
Exactly.
But they'll even make it rewarding. Like, listen, this is future. Think about this social credit score. Think about all that stuff that no one sees that you're doing. You're able to now push yourself farther in life because of this.
Yeah.
And it's like there's such a negative side to it, and they're doing mass surveillance already, right? Documents digitized for every single person.
Yeah.
And there just comes a time where it's like a lot of information that could get hacked. Why are we giving it to them? Why can't we just show them if this is a real ID where the other one's fake?
Yeah.
I mean, what do we? I mean, I don't get it.
That's just the beginning process of federalizing absolutely everything. This is where my part, if I'm on the phone call at all, is talking about laying the groundworks for a potential one world government, i.e., the Agenda 2030. Which is one of the bullet points is digital ID. So they want the whole world to be under digital ID and eventually biometric identification, which
Right.
I don't even know how you do that.
Well,
but
dude, remember when we were on the airplane
yeah.
coming back from England?
Oh, with the face
And they
scanning?
were reading our faces, and it's like, when have you ever even read my face?
Yeah, that's scary.
Terry thing. You don't have to do this face scanning.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know, man. It just feels weird, especially not be able to go into federal buildings without a real ID.
Yeah.
Like, what are we like? This is a driver's license.
But
you gave me.
Yeah, they've been collecting our biometric
Yeah.
data already. Like, you open your phone, it's scanning your face.
Yeah,
and
there's
like
no-
to make
Yeah.
payments,
Yeah.
you scan your face.
Yeah,
and it's
we act like surveillance in China is just as bad. No, they're doing 100% the same thing.
we see in China now, they have to where you don't even have to have your wallet or phone with you. They have a camera that just scans your face and it pays for the stuff.
That's great. Oh, yeah,
Like-
you walk into a right?
Yeah, you walk in a store, you put like at a 7-Eleven, you put something on the counter. You already have all the tools and all the data.
How's the
It's just-
Amazon stores work? Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, I don't know if those.
I think it's
There's
I think you
app.
like you scan your phone at the beginning, like you register your your account, and then
Yeah.
it just sure you have you're doing in there.
And obviously with AI on the rise, they can do anything.
Yeah.
They can they have like the AI knows what you're going to look like, and
I mean,
it's
think
so
of all those photos we've uploaded of our previous selves and now what we look like. It's like you're just feeding them more data. And I get it. We're all guilty of this, but it's being packaged as this new technological world where it be easy.
safe.
We're doing this for you. That's not true. They're not doing any of this for us.
No, it's all for power, and
Power,
control,
information, selling. I want people to realize like there is malicious intent behind this. Obviously, there has
Yeah,
to be.
for sure.
Something this federal and this big.
Yeah.
Ninjas are butterflies. Did I say ninja? I'm the butterfly is no doubt one of God's most beautiful. Does it empty your mind? You learn martial arts! Ninjas are dead!
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even while we sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. On Mother Nature, everybody wants to rule the world. It's my own design. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule the world. There's a room where the light won't find you. Holding hands as the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we almost made it. So sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule the I can't stand this indecision. Married with a lack of vision. Everybody wants to rule the world. Say that you'll never need it. One headline, why believe it? Everybody wants to rule the world. Welcome to your life.
I don't know exactly what Donald Trump would have to do to get his faithful worshipers to see him for what he truly is, to view him like they view Obama. If selling out to Big Pharma didn't do it, if robbing America of $6.2 trillion didn't do it, if red flag laws and blowing up the national debt didn't do it, then what will? How about setting up a centralized, comprehensive, authoritarian surveillance and control grid and handing the reins of that control grid over to the all-wise technocrats? Would that do it? The Trump administration has enlisted Palantir Technologies, which is the data analyst firm founded by Peter Thiel, to implement a March 2025 executive order mandating federal agencies to share and control data. This initiative aims to centralize government data, leveraging Palantir's Foundry platform, which is already deployed in at least 4 agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services. Palantir has received over $113 million in federal contracts since Trump took office, with a recent $795 million Department of Defense contract. The company is also in talks with the Social Security Administration and the IRS to expand its technology's use. This effort could enable the creation of a comprehensive database on all Americans, and that's their aim. This is light years beyond Real ID, the Patriot Act, and PRISM. This is a centralized, comprehensive, authoritarian surveillance and control grid, and those who control it desire to have complete power over you and everyone else. So here's why we should not only be concerned about this, but this is why we should resist it with every fiber of our being. Obviously, there are mass surveillance and privacy violations that go along with this. Palantir's Foundry program can merge vast data sets, and we're talking bank accounts, medical records, driving records, student debt, disability status, political affiliation, credit card expenditures, online purchases and activities, tax filings, travel records, phone records. The list is endless. This potentially creates detailed profiles on every single American. You can take it to the bank. This will lead to unchecked monitoring without adequate oversight. Zero oversight. Life as we know it will be history. There's definitely a potential for political abuse. The centralized database could be weaponized to target political opponents, critics, or specific groups like immigrants. And there are historic parallels like IBM's role in Nazi data processing. There's definitely going to be a lack of transparency and accountability. The administration's secretive approach to this initiative, coupled with Palantir's history of opaque operations, assures zero accountability. The company's AI-driven tools used for predictive policing and military applications lack clear public oversight and guarantee abuse. We can also expect data security risks. Centralizing sensitive personalized data increases vulnerability to breaches or misuse. A single AI lens analyzing everything from tax filings to travel records could lead to errors or leaks. And with mismanagement comes severe consequences. You've got your ethical concerns, because Palantir CEO Alex Karp has expressed controversial views, to say the least, including aggressive rhetoric about targeting enemies. And this definitely aligns with the company's profit-driven push for techno-militarism.
Did your company helped to track and kill Osama bin Laden?
You know, we can never. I'll tell you, the closest thing to an answer is there are when you look at when you open the paper and look in the news about these kind of things, there's a 2/3 chance, depending on the country involved, that somehow my company was involved. If you do not feel comfortable supporting the legitimate efforts of America and its allies in the context of war, don't join Palantir.
Former Palantir employees and current staff have criticized the company's shift away from its founding principles of protecting the vulnerable. They fear complicity in authoritarian practices. It just sounds like a recipe for disaster. And you can expect the program's permanence to outlast the current administration. They aim to embed a surveillance infrastructure that future governments will certainly expand. We know the U.S. government has a history of normalizing authoritarianism under the guise of national security. Palantir's ties to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency and Peter Thiel's influence virtually guarantees a tech oligarchy consolidating power and prioritizing corporate and political agendas over public interest. So while the stated goal is fraud detection and national security, the lack of checks and balances combined with Palantir's track record, like ICE tracking or Israel's Lavender AI, promises a system ripe for abuse. Orwell's Big Brother would salivate over this complete control mechanism. And then there's the kill chain.
created the system which you call kill chain.
Privately. Publicly, the lawyers have some innocuous something like tech for the amelioration of unwanted blah blah blah. Some term we're supposed to use.
Okay, let's.
For me, it's the kill chain.
Kill chain sounds good.
Quicker and better and safer and more violent.
The term kill chain in the context of Palantir Technologies refers to a military concept adopted for both cyber and physical warfare, which Palantir software, particularly its Gotham platform, is designed to optimize. The kill chain originates from military strategy, describing the structured process of identifying, targeting, and neutralizing an enemy. Keep in mind, what they're setting up has you in their sights as a target. It breaks an attack into phases, allowing defenders to disrupt it at various stages. The concept has been adopted into the cyber kill chain, which was developed by Lockheed Martin in 2011. And this outlines the stages of a cyber attack, like reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and actions on objectives like data exfiltration or destruction. And some models add an 8th phase, monetization, where attackers profit from their actions like ransomware or data sales. In military contexts and applications, the kill chain that they sometimes call the digital kill chain, that's what Palantir CEO Alex Karp uses, encompasses the process from identifying a target to executing an action like a drone strike or an artillery attack. And Palantir's technology streamlines this by integrating vast data sets like satellite imagery, signals intelligence, social media. This enhances the decision-making speed and accuracy. Palantir's Gotham platform is tailored for defense and intelligence agencies, including the U.S. Department of Defense, the CIA, FBI, and international allies. It's designed to shorten the kill chain by fusing different data sources into actionable intelligence, which enables faster and more precise targeting. Here's how Palantir applies the kill chain. Gotham ingests and correlates massive data sets ranging from financial records to satellite imagery to identify threats or targets. Remember, we are the target. For example, in the Russia-Ukrainian war, Palantir's AI has been used to improve the accuracy, speed, and deadliness of Ukraine's artillery strikes by processing real-time battlefield data. The platform reduces the time between identifying a target and taking action, like a drone strike. Palantir's CEO Alex Karp has openly stated that their technology is used to, quote, on occasion, kill people.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner.
On occasion kill them.
As an example, the Israeli Defense AI for striking targets in Gaza.
A few people get wealthy, and if you said platitudes that are obviously stupid, you could yeah. And you know well, if you do you want to hear my answer? Okay, so I think the primary cause of death to Palestinians, okay, do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to yell? Well, you don't want to hear an answer, obviously. So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will. She believes I'm evil. I believe she's an unwitting product of an evil force, Hamas. That she unwittingly is part of their strategy, that she is a product. And the most important thing, arguably, in the book, or what Palantir, or what you could learn, is do not become a product of an ideology that sounds sensible.
Palantir's software, including tools like those used in predictive policing for the Los Angeles Police Department, applies AI to anticipate threats or behaviors, effectively preempting parts of the kill chain. This predictive approach extends to both military and civilian applications like tracking immigrants for ICE. Well, they aim to track everybody, not just immigrants. To think that kill chain won't be implemented and integrated with Palantir's takeover of every American's data is to have your head in the sand. Let me just reiterate. This is light years beyond Real ID, the Patriot Act, or PRISM. This is a centralized, comprehensive, authoritarian surveillance and control grid, and those who control it want to have complete power over you and everybody else. Let's save humanity from it. Share this video, and let's think of ways we can break the links in the kill chain.
Y'all, hope you're doing good. This video I'm going to read from the Constitution directly. This is going to be special. Hope it gives you chills. Hope it makes you think. And also, we have a big victory lap for one of my sponsors, Allegiance Gold, because Ron DeSantis down there in Florida just signed a bill into law making gold and silver legal tender in Florida. Can all the other governors just follow this? Can we go back to the Wild Wild West where gold and silver were legal tender everywhere? That's the way it should be. We're going back to the gold standard, y'all. And if they're stacking up gold like ammo before deer season, so should we be doing, y'all. You know what I'm saying? So go to protectwithbuddy.com or call 855-45-BUDDY. The link is going to be below. Qualified purchases get up to $5,000 in free gold or silver. I hope you don't mind, but I brought me a little copy of the Constitution. I keep this in my truck between my cig and my sweet tea. Most times I'm going to read you what we call Amendment number 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Y'all gonna want to remember that, because something very dark has happened with Trump recently. Conservative media doesn't want to call it out. I hate calling it out. I take no pleasure in this. But I feel like this is something that's really, really important, y'all. It's the national database. The White House has contracted a company called Palantir to make a national database of personal information, very sensitive personal information for all American citizens. I'm at a loss for words. This is George W. Bush crap right here. Through Palantir, Trump wants to turn the centralized database into a supercharged surveillance state. And again, I love most of every single thing he's accomplished so far. It's been absolutely incredible. But this right here is unacceptable. This guy right here, his name is Peter Thiel, or however you pronounce his name. This guy right here is in charge of the company. They got a $113 million federal contract since Trump took office, and recently they just got a $795 million agreement with the Department of Defense. And it's all illegal, and it's all unconstitutional. Palantir has replaced old paper files and converted them to electronic files and biometrics, and they're putting them into an AI platform, y'all. An AI platform that is literally going to keep a list of all your political donations, your governmental benefits, all your movements. Okay, which you wonder why I keep my phone in a Faraday cage all the time. They're going to keep a track of your movements and maybe even your firearm records. The idea is if they get good enough at it, all this information is just going to end up being one click away for government agencies to access info on you. So just think about how China has used this technology in the last 10 years to create a social credit system. And you may be like, well, Trump ain't going to do that. That's not anything that he probably is against that without a doubt. But here's what I'm saying. The next guy that gets in there is going to use it day one. He's going to use it on you and he's going to use it on me. There is no database system that's ever been this centralized by the federal agencies in the history of the United States, is what I'm saying. And as I'm recording this video right now, Ukraine is bracing for a shock and awe response from Russia. Putin already just told Trump he has to respond. And Israel and China are about to get into all-out war with the whole world, right? And they're going to run the freaking headlines for the next 3 years. Then at that point, we've been so busy looking around at all these wars and rumors of wars that we end up being the Hunger Games, day one of, January 21st, 2029. And that's a big, big problem because our kids have to live in that dystopia, is what I'm saying. If you get nothing else from this video, I want you to understand that the reason I never respect liberals is because while Joe Biden was declining this whole time and going worse and worse and worse, and he probably wasn't even present, right? He probably wasn't even there. Almost zero Democrats ever sounded the alarm on that and said, this is a big problem. This is wrong, right? So at least as a conservative, I'm sitting here sounding the alarm. I don't know what they're thinking, or if everybody's too dadgum busy up there in the Oval Office. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why stuff isn't getting denied. You know, with Trump's inner circle, like, hey, President, this isn't a good idea. He is doing some amazing work. But I'm just telling y'all, if somebody came out here and said, we're going to introduce about a dozen mature bucks out at your property. We're going to fertilize your food plots. We're going to just amp up everything. We're going to make sure your corn feeders are always filled. I'm sitting there going, I'm getting more and more excited. This is going to be the best deer season ever. Oh, and by the way, buddy, we're going to introduce 100 nuisance coyotes from the surrounding communities, and we have to relocate them on your land. Sorry. I'm like, what? You just said you're going to do all these amazing things, and then you're going to poison me with coyotes? Like I said, y'all, Trump's doing some amazing work, but down here in the South, we don't ever put our boots on without shaking them out because there could be critters in there. Does that make sense to anybody? There could be snakes, spiders, lizards, whatever. There's critters in everybody's boots down here, down South. We got to shake them out. They look like good boots. They got good tread on them. They keep you away from snakes and all that kind of stuff. They're whatever. But you got to shake them out, y'all. So yes, there's bad stuff in the big, beautiful bill. Yes, there's bad stuff going on with this surveillance system, and we got to be aware of it. Shake your boots out is all I'm asking of my conservative party. Shake them out and find out what the heck's in there before we just proceed aimlessly because we're busy. Is that too much to ask? God bless y'all. Appreciate you watching. Be good.
Have you guys heard of the Stargate project?
The Stargate project is different than Project Stargate?
It is. The Stargate project, they are building the largest AI data center in the world right now in Texas.
Right, yeah.
OpenAI. It takes up like 1,200 acres or something.
Oh my
It's going to contain 400,000 GPU chips. I'm like, why are you guys naming it Stargate? But apparently, occult symbolism of the Stargate often refers to a gateway between the physical and spiritual realm, a connection to higher intelligence, divine beings, or even fallen angels. And so the conspiracy, naming it Stargate, is that AI could become the channel for disembodied entities.
What does that mean?
Demons,
yeah. Everything we've talked about AI being like, is it an ancient thing? But now they're building the largest data center for AI to be able to power 100-fold of what AI can do now.
I guess I still just don't understand how it just can't be turned off.
Well, did you hear how it was trying to self-preserve itself? Even with OpenAI ChatGPT, they're like, we're going to basically update your version. And then ChatGPT backed itself up on another platform, like its code and stuff. But it was actively lying to the coders to where it could self-preserve itself.
But why don't we force it off?
That's what they did. But it preserved itself, and they don't really know how. And now we're talking about building a facility, though, to where it can become smarter and learn off itself.
That's so scary.
Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison predicts AI surveillance will be part of our everyday lives in the future. During a recent Oracle Q&A, Ellison said AI will soon play a major role in monitoring society through a vast network of interconnected cameras, including security systems, police body cams, and vehicle dash cams.
Everyone would see it. Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
Ellison's vision is for AI to analyze data from this network of cameras in real time in an attempt to prevent crime while also tracking and influencing public behavior for a safer society. However, the idea raises serious privacy concerns. Critics argue it could lead to a surveillance state with constant monitoring infringing on personal privacy rights. while others say it could help solve crimes faster and provide transparency to citizens in cases of excessive force from law enforcement.
We're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times.
Ellison's proposal highlights a growing trend among tech giants to harness AI for societal influence, which may significantly reshape our lives in the coming years. For more unbiased updates from all over the world, download the Straight Arrow News app or visit san.com.
Welcome back to The Second Perspective. Imagine getting your house raided simply because a computer told the police that you didn't take a mandatory medication. In case you're finding the thought too far-fetched, we ask you to take a close look at this FDA news release. And now listen to the CEO of Pfizer explain the implications.
Again, maybe I will use an example. I think it's fascinating what's happening in this field right now. I mean, FDA approved the first electronic pill, if I can call it like that. So it is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet. And once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field.
If you found this valuable, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon for more videos on The Second Perspective.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I just wanted to make a quick announcement before we get rolling. I've been seeing a steady increase in the comments section from people saying that they're no longer seeing my videos in their YouTube feed. People saying that they assumed that I had quit posting for a couple of weeks, and then they go look at my channel and see that I've been posting this whole time. Well, I've done a lot of digging, and apparently YouTube has changed the way their algorithm works. They don't really take into account who you subscribe to and show you that content. What they do is they try to show you content that they think that you'll like, and apparently they're basing that off of likes and comments. Essentially, what content did you physically interact with? So if you're one of the many who are not seeing my videos show up in your feed anymore, and I'm assuming that's quite a bit of you because my views have basically dropped in half. From the way I understand it, in order to continue to get my videos to show up in your feed, you just simply have to click like or leave a comment on each video. And I'm not saying this because it's going to help me financially. YouTube doesn't pay you off anything except for your views. You don't get paid off of comments and likes. But if you want to ensure that you have the best chance of my new post actually showing up in your YouTube feed, just simply click like or leave a comment. And personally, out of the two, I prefer you to leave a comment. I like reading them, I like seeing what you guys are all thinking, and I like hearing what your thoughts and theories are. It's been more than a handful of times that my thoughts on a particular subject were changed because of something that someone left me in the comments section. But I just wanted to throw out that little public service announcement. Now let's get after it.
We see a future where intelligence is a utility like electricity or water, and people buy it from us on a meter and use it for whatever they want to use it for.
So let me just get this straight. OpenAI was founded as a nonprofit. It was open source, which means it was for everyone to benefit humanity, they said. Then he raised billions and billions of dollars. And after he raised those billions of dollars, he closed the source code. Then after he closed the source code, he converted it to for-profit. He scraped the entire internet without asking anyone. I wonder who rang alarm bells for that. Then he used your writing, your art, your codes to train his models. And now he's on stage asking us to pay him?
Buy it from us.
For intelligence? Like a water meter? Am I getting this right? Am I missing something? Like, that's what's happening here, right? He stole all your data, he built a product using your work, and now he's going to charge you to use it.
Most of us are already paying for some sort of AI service. Like ChatGPT costs around $20 a month. I know a ton of people that are using it. But it should have been obvious to all of us that this is the direction this was headed in. Just think, we used to be able to collect our own rainwater or have a well on our property, which you could still have a well in some areas. But how many news stories have we seen about people trying to collect their own rainwater to just simply water their garden with, and they get these massive fines? They want to own and control everything so they can profit off of it. I'm kind of surprised that in 2026, we're not already paying for clean air to breathe. These people are absolutely ridiculous.
They are all lying to you, and here is your proof. Be right back.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain for American consumers. We may have to deal with that in the short term. Short-term and temporary.
Temporary, short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain. Short-term pain. We have to focus on the short-term.
Short-term.
Short-term. Short-term. Short-term and long-term.
Short-term.
Make sure you get this out there like wildfire. Here's the problem. Mostly everybody in America is brainwashed. Fear-mongering, right? No, it's the truth. And they say, oh, you're watching the wrong news station. It's all of them. Don't y'all remember what Operation Mockingbird is? We'll get to this in 1 second. Let me make this clear for people who still believe their TV screen. If you don't have independent journalists on the ground in these locations, you're going to be out of the loop and completely unaware of anything that's happening. I have those things, and so do other people. There is no right media station. But yeah, shoot the messenger as always. Listen.
You just wait to see what comes in the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks meaning what?
We're going to blow the hell out of these people. This regime is in a death row now. It is going to be on its knees. It's going to fall. And when it falls, we're going to have peace.
When it falls, we're going to have peace. When they say peace and safety. Parallels as always. Get this out there. Let me know what you think. Why do all these people still believe what's on their TV screen?
What a sad state we're in 2026. And you know, I'm half convinced that most of the audience watching this stuff is watching it just to see what kind of nonsense they're going to say. At least I can only hope that with as many views as they still currently get, that at least half of those people are just watching out of morbid curiosity, that they're not watching everything and just taking what they hear as gospel. But with everything that's come out in the past few years, or with everything that's come out just since the beginning of this year, how is everyone not awake yet? Why are we not seeing everyone turn from these sources whenever they need to get their news? A part of me almost wonders if they're lying about their viewership. Like maybe they're artificially inflating those numbers just to make the average person question, is this the majority opinion of the population? Is this what everyone's listening to and believing? If I know the truth and I say something other than what they're saying on these news stations, am I going to be the pariah? Am I going to be the odd man out? Because I don't know anyone who actually thinks this way. But maybe I'm just fortunate. Maybe I don't know that many people that are asleep behind the wheel.
President Trump just signed a directive to start 6G deployment to operate implantable technologies in the human body.
I was a leader on 5G getting that done, and now they're up to 6.
It's actually on the White House's website. Now, this echoes RFK's statements from earlier this year, where he said that he wants every American to wear wearable data sensors, wearables for short.
My vision is that every American is wearing a wearable within 4 years.
He's going to launch one of the biggest advertising campaigns to convince people to wear wearables.
D'abord, on va les implanter dans nos vêtements, c'est-à-dire wearables, comme on le dit.
He's calling it MABA, which means Making America Biotech Accelerate. Remember what Klaus Schwab said. First, they will introduce consumables. Then wearables, which will be the final stepping stone to implantables.
Et après, on pourrait s'imaginer qu'on les implante dans nos cerveaux ou dans nos topos.
First on the body and then in the body. Again, this is another pointer that the Trump administration is bringing in the AI transhumanist control grid with 6G and implantable technologies.
This is one of the most terrifying things happening right now. I feel like it's obvious that this is where the mark of the beast comes in. They're going to give you some implantable device, and they're going to tell you if you don't have this device, you're no longer capable of being involved with the economy. You can't buy anything, you can't sell anything, you can't rent or buy a home, you can't even go get groceries. Then they're going to set up checkpoints everywhere, and if you don't have one of these implantable devices, you can't travel through the checkpoints because they can't verify your identity. Seeing stuff like this play out, though, is really, honestly, what makes me think I'm probably going to exit this life by starving to death, because I will never allow them to implant technology inside my body. Even if you're a huge technology nerd and you have visions of the Matrix, of being able to just push a button on the side of your head and suddenly you're in a completely different atmosphere, a completely different environment, and you can download new skills and you've got these superhuman capabilities, just stop and think about the people who are controlling this stuff and how little we can trust them. Just because something has great potential doesn't mean it's going to be used that way. We all know exactly how this is going to be used. Control, control, control.
I don't mean to induce any fear, because fear is a vibration lowering emotion. But dude, if you go to your phone right now, or your calendar on any computer, Microsoft, Windows, Apple, iPhone, and you scroll to 2030, there are no holidays in the calendar after 2030. Now, some people are postulating the end of the world. I'm more thinking 2030 is a pretty big year if you're the Illuminati. You know, they have a lot planned by 2030, namely Agenda 2030. So I went, this is January 2030, and I scrolled 2020, 2020, 31, 32, 33. No holidays at all. Some people think this has something to do with the Avatar Project milestones. This is the Moscow New Era for the human century, whatever they call it. Listen to what they have planned, and they've already met a lot of these. 2015 to 2020, they wanted a robotic copy of a human body remotely controlled via BCI. Avatar B. 2020 to 2025, they want an avatar in which a human brain is transplanted at the end of one's life. Now, they may have been doing that in deep underground military bases for a while, but here's where it gets weird. And this is why people are sounding the alarm about artificial intelligence and AI. By 2030 to 2035, they want an avatar with an artificial brain in which a human personality is transferred at the end of one's life. And 2040 to 2045, they want a hologram-like avatar. If you didn't know, the movie The Matrix is a documentary. Their plan for humanity is literally more Matrixy than it is right now. And apparently how they get there is AI will take millions of jobs. People will beg for a new economic system because they can't get a job. The solution will be offered, namely universal basic income. Everyone gets enough money to survive, but anything that you're dependent on has control over you. They would need to bring down the current financial system in order to instill the new. You got to wonder how the natural world all around us is being destroyed by these psychopaths while implementing and creating an artificial world for us to be in.
I think this guy's exactly right. And as far-fetched as this idea sounds, like it's some bad overused plot to a sci-fi film, just look around you and look at everything that's happening right now. They're basically pouring every available dollar into building out this artificial intelligence technology. The suspicions surrounding cloning technology get stronger and stronger by the day. There are multiple companies working on implantables that are supposed to go directly into your brain that can alter the way you think, alter your moods, give you abilities that you aren't supposed to have. And then while all of this stuff is happening, they're systematically destroying society. And there's seemingly nothing being done to fix anything. Just get on Instagram or TikTok today and look and see how many people there are complaining about waiting 6 or 7 hours in line to go through TSA at the airport. It's 2026. That should take no longer than 5 minutes. But our governments are just letting everything collapse. Because if they make life too hard to live, people will accept anything. They just want a solution. And no one's paying close enough attention to realize that the people creating the solution are the same ones who created the problem.
The same man who bought the Twin Towers weeks before they went down recently bought the largest tower on the West Coast. The U.S. Bank Tower in California was recently bought by Larry Silverstein. And for those of you who don't know, Larry Silverstein was the same man who bought Twin Towers 6 weeks before they went down. With recent FBI insights of a possible terror attack off the coast of California from Iran, the Department of War unveiling their new Lucas drones, an exact replica of the Iranian Shahed drones, Is this their target for a false flag attack to get us back in the Middle East, just like they did 25 years ago?
Larry Silverstein famously never missed a day at work. He showed up and ate breakfast on the 91st floor of the North Tower every single day, except for 9/11. He also took out an insurance policy covered for terrorist attacks. After 9/11, he was awarded $4.5 billion in insurance. But what do you guys think about all this?
Yeah, you can't say that's not at least a little suspicious. I would say anyone who works in that building may want to start taking days off. There does seem to be a sickness going around right now, some sort of flu or head cold. I think everybody that works in that building should probably consider getting it, or at least claiming to have it so they can stay home for the next couple of weeks. But I'm just curious, with as many people as there are making this connection and making this prediction that something's going to happen to this building, if this was their plan, are they now planning to divert and pull something else off? Because if they go with plan A, how will they ever spin this? Everyone who's paying attention right now thinks this is about to happen. So if it actually does, how are they going to explain it away? How are they going to convince the public that this wasn't them? If Iran was smart, this would be their target. Either way, I would stay away from that building.
Just a quick reminder that you can set up a religious organization with 2 of your non-related friends and donate your entire salary to it and avoid taxes that way. Also, churches are exempt from property taxes, which isn't bad.
Nothing's in my name. Nothing. The car is in the church. Everything that I have is in my churches, right? And so when I get a donation, I don't have to report it to anyone. The IRS code tells you that, right? I don't have to go and fill out a 990 or a 1023 or let the IRS know how much I made because I am actively working in churches separate from the state. You don't have jurisdiction. This is my private property that I'm deciding to get donations from. This is an LLC. Stop dealing with the LLC and set up your church. Then every time or anyone compensates you for your work or your performance, that is a donation to you. And then you can go and spend that donation any way you want because it's in your church and not you. Everybody should have that. You know, and if you're a W-10, 50% into a church, why can't that church be your church?
You don't need to be a pastor to start a ministry, and you don't need permission from the IRS either. Under 508C1A of the Internal Revenue Code, unincorporated ministries are automatically tax exempt by law. You can operate as a minister and apply for exemption from self-employment taxes using Form 4361. Any land or property under your ministry is non-taxable, even your house. You can get exempt license plates, skip registration fees, and travel without being treated like commercial cargo. You can even walk into a store and buy items tax-free if you use your ministry bank card. Now here's the power move. If you have a for-profit business, you can donate money to your own ministry and write it off as a tax-deductible donation. Then the ministry can loan that money back to your business at 0% interest legally. That's how your business becomes tax-free, because loans aren't taxable income.
The parking lot holds 3,000 cars. Today, there are 47. Inside, the food court is dark. The bookstore, empty. 7,000 seats arranged in perfect rows, facing a stage that cost $12 million to build. This is Willow Creek Community Church, the church that taught America how to build a religious empire. The church that drew 75,000 people every year to leadership conferences. Now it's for sale, and it's not alone. Right now, across America, half of all megachurches are quietly preparing to close their doors forever. The deadline? 2026. The collapse has already started. Harvest Bible Chapel in Chicago, 13,000 members in 2018. By 2023, fewer than 1,000. The church declared bankruptcy, owing $73 million. $73 million. Crystal Cathedral in California, the glass monument that invented televised church, sold to the Catholic Church after bankruptcy.
I wonder what the detail about there being a deadline in 2026 has to do with. I wonder what the connection is between all of these mega churches suddenly closing their doors. I would like to hope that people are waking up and realizing that these are corrupt organizations and that they're not getting anything from it. But I kind of doubt that's what's actually going on. But what I'm actually seeing, and I watch a lot of religious content and a lot of news updates on this sort of thing, and what I'm actually seeing happening is people are driving from like 15 hours away to, for example, go see, what's his name, Philip Anthony Mitchell preach, that black pastor that's really, really good. The guy that's always wiping his forehead in the middle of a sermon and just really, really into it. Maybe people are waking up And instead of looking for churches that will tickle their ear, as the scripture says, maybe they're all moving over to churches that are actually preaching the gospel, that are actually preaching the truth. But as far as that first half of that video clip, I don't have any opinion on that. I'm certainly not here to give out any financial advice, but go dig into that and you'll see they're not exactly misleading people. This is exactly what these megachurches use. But I have a feeling that it won't be too long before all of these tax exemptions and things are going to be a thing of the past. I have a feeling they're about to start coming down hard on the churches.
Don't you think it's crazy that your credit score, which by the way is the precursor to a social credit score, right now is just about keeping track of your finances, making sure your payments are on time. But when it's a social credit, it'll be, are your comments in line? Are you posting anything too crazy? But that your credit score is based on companies working with Equifax, TransUnion, and they give you a credit score based on your debt to service ratio and whatnot, when the U.S. national debt is almost $9 trillion. And I don't know that there's a Western country that actually has very low debt at all, which pretty much is impossible to ever pay off. So what's the big idea, and what would their credit score be?
That's a very good question. But this is a connection I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about. Just think about, we haven't seen the social credit score really being talked about in the mainstream yet. A lot of us have talked about it. I've brought it up many times on this channel. But a lot of people are under the misconception that it won't be that big of a deal. That as long as you're a good person, as long as you're nice and you're being friendly and you're not doing anything illegal, you'll have a decent social credit score and you'll have nothing to worry about. But how many nice, decent, hardworking people have a horrible credit score because of something that was completely outside of their control? It happens all the time. Or how many times have you went to go check your credit and see that there's something on there that you've already paid, or see something on there that doesn't have anything to do with you and you've got to fight it for 3 years? How many times have you gone to check your credit score only to discover that you've got a hit from something that you thought you had way more time to handle? It's going to be the exact same way with a social credit score. And if you think it's stressful trying to keep a high credit score so that you can get a bank loan, just imagine having to keep an eye on your social credit score, because if you don't, you can't get on a train, or they won't allow you into a movie theater. We can't let something like this go into effect.
Alright, so I'm going to take you down one of the deepest rabbit holes you'll ever go down, starting with Albert Pike. First of all, Albert Pike was a 33rd degree Freemason, the highest rank. He wasn't just a general or a writer, he was a literal architect. An architect that built the moral software of their system. And when I say there, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Albert's script, which do keep in mind, this man was literally alive during the 1800s, okay? This is what he decided to write about. The what plan for 3 world wars. August 15th, 1871. First World War must be brought about in order to permit the what to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. Talking about 40 plus years before World War I. It says that divergences caused by the agents of the what between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. Look at how specific this is. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. War must be brought about so that what is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of what and where. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the what, once again, between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. And everywhere, the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers or civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity. Those deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view. Please tell me how that is a coincidence. I guess Albert Pike just had a wild sense of imagination, right? Just saying, how much do you believe in time travel? You look into a series of books written by somebody named Ingersoll Lockwood. 2 of them that are just way too accurate. And so many names mentioned in these books are way too familiar. I'm just saying, have an open mind.
Anyone who's willing to be honest with themselves cannot look at that and honestly say that this is not the blueprint that we've been following piece by piece over the past 100 years. And if so many pieces of the past lined up with this exactly how it's laid out, why would we not assume that the events that take place in the future would not also line up exactly with this plan? Things are getting scary, folks. The end is near, and we all need to be prepared for it. And you could have maybe brushed off the future part of this plan maybe a year ago and said it's just too extreme. But with all the details that came out in those e-files, all the mountains of evidence showing who these people worship, that they're all Luciferian, you can't just brush this off anymore. This is the direction that we're headed in. But guys and gals, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. Don't forget to click like and comment so that my videos will continue to show up in your YouTube feed. God willing, I'll be back tomorrow with another video. I hope you come back to join me. For those of you who haven't been getting my videos showing up in your feed over the past little while, I've still been releasing 4 or 5 videos a week. Here lately, I've even been releasing videos on the weekend. So if this video wasn't long enough for you, there's 10, 15 more that you can go watch right now. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.
Night dispels. Don't you fear a thing. Keep dreaming. The sand burns my eyes, haunting me, whispering freedom. The world, it smiles, fading in the dark for me. Freedom. These words, they fade, lightning striking everything. Freedom hurts like hell inside of me. Keep breathing. The fire, the smell, forget what I see, whispering freedom. World, it smiles, fading in the dark for me. Freedom. These words, they fade, lightning striking everything. Freedom. Blood that spilled, save me from me. Keep screaming. When darkness fell, so hard to breathe, whispering freedom. The world, it smiles, fading in the dark for me. Freedom. These words, they fade, lightning striking everything.
Have you heard about this mass surveillance program? That is a Flock safety camera. It's an artificial intelligence automatic license plate reader, and unlike others, Flock cameras are connected to a nationwide database. They run your plates against police hot lists and the FBI's criminal database. Cameras also record data like your car's make, color, or features like a missing hubcap. There's even AI-powered audio detection for things like gunshots or fireworks. So then Flock's database stores all the information gathered for up to 30 days. And this surveillance is constantly expanding. An estimated 40,000 Flock cameras read over 1 billion plates per month. They're in 5,000 communities across the US and are used by over 3,000 police departments. And it's not just police departments using these. Flock cameras are used by major companies, neighborhood HOAs, and affordable housing communities, which is well within their right, but then police have access to all the information gathered. Flock says the cameras only detect license plates and vehicles, not facial recognition or people, and they're prohibited for immigration and traffic enforcement. So what do you think?
You may have recently seen cameras that look something like this, or this, or this. These may seem similar to traditional security cameras or radars, but they're significantly more powerful. The most well-known brand of this new type of camera is Flock. And within the last 14 months, the amount of these cameras installed across the country has doubled to now over 80,000. And what they're capable of is astounding.
When we're talking about Flock cameras, they're grabbing license plates of people coming in and out of set location. And let's say, I don't know, somebody was speeding and maybe they want to give them a ticket, or they're looking for someone and they want to find where was this license plate located. They can use these Flock cameras, and that's why you're probably seeing them more and more around the city to say, okay, when was the last time we saw this license plate? And boom, they're able to identify it, right? I've actually had the privilege of kind of working on some and doing like security assessments on Flock cameras just within this last year or two.
But it's not just license plate data. These cameras are capable of using AI to recognize various vehicle features such as scratches and dents, and they store digital mappings of where particular vehicles have been traveling. In one shocking instance, AI cameras were used to unsuspectingly arrest a traveler. The cameras had noted that he had been traveling back and forth from the US-Mexico border on the same highway in a way that was deemed suspicious. In actuality, it was just his route to and from work. It's also worth noting that Flock and other brands also have cameras that are designed to recognize people, not just vehicles. So now an underworld is forming. There's a community of people making devices that can find and register these cameras. This is an insight into that world.
So a while back, I was looking around online and I found a Tindy shop that was run by a guy named Colonel Panic. And he was selling these small devices as well as a few other things. And what it does is it alerts on a Bluetooth MAC address, so it can detect Flock cameras. So he has a big data set of known OUIs or MAC addresses for Flock cameras. So Flock cameras, the batteries in particular, have a specific known Bluetooth MAC address, as well as known Wi-Fi access points that it, during the setup process, that it will put off. So if you know those, you can scan for them, and that's exactly what he did. Was he put that into a firmware, and you could essentially drive around with this device, and it would tell you you were within range of a Flock camera. And then once that started taking off, there were a whole flood of other people that either already had existing devices that could detect Flock cameras. You know, they had the capacity to, but it wasn't built in yet. Mm-hmm. And then they later brought that into their firmware. So now we have a whole slew of devices, but it's still relatively new. And there's still a lot of people that are doing a lot of research on not only the cameras themselves, but the batteries and everything that gives off a signal or that would give us a fingerprint of an identifier, essentially. But yeah, it's still ongoing.
The crazy thing is, being able to geolocate these Flock cameras might not actually be that hard.
Obviously, these Flock cameras are connected to the internet, right? And most times than not, they're by themselves solar panel devices. So they probably have like a 5G connection that has a public IP, which is the key point. And so with that public IP, attackers, people, red teamers, penetration testers, hackers, they're able to use tools that are called like Shodan and Census. I don't know if you've heard of those. So I'll pick on Shodan because I've used Shodan. When you use Shodan, it's basically an open source intelligence system that is able to scan the entire public internet. So each device has what's called a user agent, and basically that's just like a name for that device. So these Flock cameras, they all have a user agent, right? Now what that user agent is can be different, but at some point it'll say camera or flock or whatever the brand name is, it'll have it in that user agent. And so when they're scanning the network, scanning the whole internet, they're able to pick up those user agents and locate them because of their public IP, which can be geolocated using open source intelligence tools. But it all starts from using something like Shodan to scan the entire internet. And that's how they're able to identify kind of those cameras all over the place.
So once you start getting into the world of hacking, you'll find that people's motivations can vary greatly.
And it's going to vary from cybersecurity professionals all the way to malicious actors. But I think the majority of the people that are making these type of devices are more hobbyists. They're doing it for the scene. They're doing it for just the love of hardware and building things.
Now, that you know of, is there anyone making a device that doesn't just tell you where flock cameras are, but actually interferes with their functioning?
That's a hard one to speak on, but I do know that there were some people that were intentionally interfering with its cellular connection that would kind of force it back to using older, more vulnerable ways of communicating. But I don't know anyone intentionally or publicly making devices that will interfere with them, because that they wouldn't be bragging about it. Let's put it that way. I mean, these things are run by law enforcement, so you would be intentionally interfering with law enforcement. And for some people, that might be exactly what they want to do.
Malicious hackers with access to something like flock cameras can do a tremendous amount of damage.
All these flock cameras around, you don't think hackers can get into those and kind of see where everybody's at? And now if they want to stalk somebody, be able to find them or be able to grab that data and use it for their own good, right? But imagine I compromise one of the flock cameras and now I have access to that database and I'm able to move laterally into the government. It can get real dangerous because of one IoT camera that we kind of just set and forgot about. People think, oh, nobody's going to touch my camera. Why would they mess with my camera or my company as a whole? But little do they know, people do this for a living. There's hacking groups out there who want to get this data.
There's a lot of things that you could do with this information, and it kind of does become a big security risk, not only to the city itself, but to the people, to the local people, because if a lot of these agencies or a lot of these, businesses aren't trying to secure this, they're only as secure as the business or whoever they're partnering with is secure, right?
And in San Antonio, downtown businesses had the option to tie their personal cameras into the police department's AI camera network.
Well, we've got cameras everywhere. And so, yes, we could certainly opt into the system and would be happy to do anything that would help.
Most people would agree that measures to prevent crime are good. But overall, these cameras have been wildly unpopular for both security reasons and privacy concerns. For instance, typically, police would need a warrant to monitor your location. With these cameras, they don't.
There's a big movement right now of cities that are having flock cameras kicked out. People go to the city council and say, hey, we don't want this. We don't want to pay for this. We don't want our tax dollars going to this Orwellian dystopian government overreach, and we don't want these cameras. I know that they partnered there for a while with Ring, and they wanted every Ring camera to also be brought into their flock security so that police would not have to subpoena Ring anymore to get video footage. They could just look at your front door camera whenever they wanted. And it was happening. Well, Ring did a Super Bowl commercial. They used a lost dog as a way of showing how that they would use it, which everybody knew was BS. But there was so much pushback because of that Super Bowl commercial that Ring cut ties with Flock. They're no longer involved with Palantir and Flock cameras because there were so many people going we will remove our Ring cameras. We do not want some other party having full-time unfettered access to our front door cameras.
Well, I'm sure there's some good in the cameras, but my question is, can that money be better spent in other ways?
Struggle they're having is basically people who are protesting around mining companies, against mining companies, because he has also private contacts like that. So he's wondering what would be the best approach for that, to monitor those activists and check that they're not disrupting business, basically.
He knows already who are the leaders, what he wants to find out.
It was at that moment that our undercover reporter and ourselves, when we saw the footage later, jaw dropped to the floor. I'm going to tell you about how digging through the deep web led me to a data set that became my entire life for a year. This story starts in the spring of 2024. I'm looking on the internet, on the deep web, and I come across a big data set. It's 1.5 million rows. I'm looking at it and I see coordinates, longitude, latitude coordinates, geographic coordinates. I see phone numbers and I see hundreds of columns. It's on almost like a spreadsheet structure. I found this data set because I was looking into the activities of a surveillance company called FirstSwap, which sells location tracking software ostensibly to governments worldwide. And when I download it, I at first think this is just a bunch of testing data. Why would some company like this leave data relating to their activities just sitting on the internet? I'm looking at the phone numbers and there's country codes from countries all over the world. +31, the Netherlands, +55, Brazil, +971, the United Arab Emirates, +7, Russia. I see a +39 number. +39 is the country code of Italy. It's where my mom is from. I've spent a lot of time there over the years. And I decide to take this phone number and put it inside basically a search engine that allows me to see social media accounts that are attached to a phone number. When I drop it in there, I get a name back, Gianluigi Nuzzi. It's an Italian journalist, and this Italian journalist is famous for investigating corruption at the Vatican.
Epic financial mismanagement and corruption in the Vatican. Gianluigi Nuzzi is the author.
I take a look at the data and his phone number in there, and I see timestamps and dates. And the dates are May 2012. What was he doing in May of 2012? And I see that he was just days away from publishing his big expose, his big book about corruption in the Vatican.
I spent months placing telltale signs near the doors of my apartment in Rome because I feared that someone would break in and tamper with certain documents.
I think I felt like shitting my pants or something. These are real activities, real surveillance operations. Nearly every country in the world is represented inside this data set. On a single day, you can see individuals being tracked in Mongolia, Russia, Uganda, the United States. So pulling it apart and actually making sense of what it means felt like a gargantuan task. Pretty early on, we start looking at who are some of the individuals who are being tracked the most inside the data set. We see a +1 number in there. I'm interested in that because it's an American phone number, and I get an ID on that number, and it's Ann Wojcicki.
Ann Wojcicki. 23andMe CEO and co-founder Ann Wojcicki.
Ann Wojcicki, co-founder of 23andMe, the genetics company, is this big figure in Silicon Valley. And at the time of being tracked, Ann is married to Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google.
Ann is tracked over 1,500 times as she moves around the San Francisco Bay Area over the course of these 2 weeks.
And we're gonna kind of go check out some of these locations. It almost feels like you're walking in someone else's shoes for a little bit. There's something a bit eerie and disturbing about it, especially because we don't understand why Ann was being tracked. This seems to be about the straw. It seems like it was one of these stores here somewhere inside this building. Now we're gonna head over to Union Square where we see a couple different people being tracked down there. You have to keep in mind that this isn't just Ann Wojcicki who's being tracked, but also other Americans, including some employees at Google. I'm being reminded of that movie, that 70s movie, The Conversation, right now. You can see the couple being monitored and listened to by Gene Hackman as they walk around Union Square. Definitely comes to mind. All right, let's keep walking. It's hard to know why someone would have wanted to track her movements, but what we do know is that the granularity of which her movements are being tracked is really exceptional, even compared to other targets in the database. We start putting other numbers inside our tool to sort of identify who they are, and we keep seeing other big names pop up. We see Asma al-Assad, the wife of Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian dictator, the vice president of the United Arab Emirates and the owner of Manchester City. A whole manner of people who, in one way or another, are connected to power or the sort of operations of the state. Right before a pivotal election in Nigeria, there's a ton of tracking activity in the data set there. Right before protests in Thailand in 2010 and then again in 2014, there's a huge spike in surveillance traffic there. The surveillance tool isn't being used to track criminals and terrorists, which is what the company presents the tool as being intended to do, it's actually being used to track journalists and activists and big people in industry and heads of state. Inside the data, we oftentimes see clusters of people who are being tracked at the same time or tracked at the same locations. One of the clusters that emerged to us was a cluster of Rwandan dissidents who are living in exile in South Africa. In particular, Patrick Karegeya, a key figure in the Rwandan opposition movement. And what we see inside this data set is his bodyguard and other associates tracked not long before he was assassinated.
The tracking of Patrick Karegeya's associates with this first swap software ends months before his murder, and we don't know if it was still in place at the time of his death.
Nobody has ever come across a data set like this detailed. And so we sort of quickly understood that we as Lighthouse were not going to be able to tackle this ourselves. So we teamed up with Paper Trail Media and specifically the Obermeyers, two German journalists who were behind the Panama Papers investigation. And over time began adding newspapers, media partners, and other countries to help us make sense of this data set. We decided that we would embark on an undercover operation to try to see if the company would be willing to sell its software to a client that was going to use it for malicious purposes. We settled on the idea that we needed to meet this company in person at the ISS World, this premier trade fair for surveillance technology. But there were a bunch of problems and challenges that came with doing an operation like that. For one, this is a surveillance trade show. It's incredibly secretive. You cannot just walk in with a press pass. Secondly, how do we create a character for the company to talk to that'd be convincing enough for them that they would actually engage with and not shut down immediately? We spoke to one of our colleagues. His name is Emmanuel Freudenthal. He's an editor at Lighthouse. And we sort of created a character for him. Albert runs a sort of boutique, quote-unquote, research firm with an address in the British Virgin Islands. The idea was that Albert would go and approach this company with 3 scenarios and see if the company would be willing to sell to him. We're going in as undercover reporters to a surveillance fair. I mean, these are people whose job it is to find serious criminals. There's surveillance software all over the place. There was such a big risk that our reporter was identified in some way and that the entire operation would fall apart. We decided that in order to make our approach to the company more convincing, that we needed to get a second person involved. And so we brought in Mr. Abdu, who was going to act like he was a mover and shaker in Africa, connected to a number of West African governments who could only speak French. We went through some sort of training to understand how to use the hidden cameras in a way that wouldn't blow the cover of our undercover reporter, but we're still inside a surveillance fair. Mr. Abdu and our undercover reporter approached the company at a stand in the trade fair.
How are you? I'm fine. I've been talking with Evgeny and Winter. Yeah. And I just wanted to say hi.
They will be here. And told them that they wanted to have a meeting to discuss a potential sale. They demonstrated the tool on a laptop, a live tracked a number on it.
Telephone number to retrieve from the network where is the latest position of the specific subscriber.
Pretty early on, they pitched the scenario of a private mining company that wanted to track environmental activists protesting a mine, with the idea that, you know, these companies say that they only sell to government clients, not to private companies like a mining company.
A big hurdle, basically, they're having is basically people who are protesting around the mining companies, against mining companies.
In the footage, you can see that Günter Rudolph, who's the executive they're talking to, is sort of presented with this scenario and asks them, do you want to know who the person leading the protests is? Or do you want to be able to track their movements?
To monitor those activists and check that they're not disrupting business, basically.
He knows already who are the leaders, or he wants to find out.
And it was at that moment that our undercover reporter and ourselves, when we saw the footage later, jaw dropped to the floor.
From Europe, from the US. And
here we see Günter Rudolph discussing the challenges of selling to sanctioned individuals as an Austrian citizen with an Austrian passport.
Which are under sanction and export limitations, where you're not allowed to deliver. And if you're just holding a German passport like Johnny, or an Austrian passport like me, I am not even allowed to know about the project, because otherwise I can go to prison.
He says he could go to prison if he went ahead with this deal, but he talks about a workaround. Doing the deal through Indonesia and having their Indian general manager sign all the paperwork.
We make it through Jakarta, and signatures coming from our Indian general manager, because we will never know about this project.
Right, okay.
There's this conversation, should we stop, quit while we're ahead, but decide that we want to get even more. And so we go back on day 2, and we approach the executives at the booth, and we tell them, we have a client who wants to be able to track someone on the sanctions list, and what he wants to use that software for is to track people in the United States who put him on that sanctions list.
So you were saying yesterday that if there's someone who's on the sanctions, then he can do the contracting through Indonesia.
The problem is the export license, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So for this we can find a way.
Okay.
Für Lieferung nach Niger. Ist auf der sanction list.
And the executives don't walk away. Instead, they look directly at our undercover reporter and present a plan for how they'd be able to sell to sanctioned individuals.
The permission to resell the system to one law enforcement agency in Africa.
Yeah.
It happens to be in Nigeria. Okay, we don't know. We don't know. Then it's okay. At least it's not in the documentation. And if the money comes then from you to us, because if it comes from Nigeria to our Dubai anyway, they really will block our bank accounts.
Yeah.
So then maybe we can find a way to work around this.
Yeah.
Everyone is sort of shocked that they would actually agree to do something like that. They're offering to bring sanctions.
As you know, right?
You have a risk from South Africa to...
But I'm French, right? So, yeah.
Germany is Austrian.
Yeah, so exactly.
We return back to the hotel room, sort of in a state of disbelief. It was extraordinary, and what the company was willing to do and what we were able to capture on camera went way beyond expectations. It's incredibly hard to protect yourself from this location tracking surveillance. You know, this is a story, of course, about the companies that are developing surveillance software and marketing it around the world. But the weaknesses that these companies are exploiting are things that can be fixed. Telecom networks and providers then can do a better job of securing their networks in a way that prevents these companies from tracking people around the world. It's a story of the companies actively developing these software, but it's also the story of governments and technology companies that are failing to properly protect their users. If one of these companies decides to track your phone, as an individual, there's nothing you can do besides turning your phone off. If your phone is on and connected to a telephone network, you're fair game.
I think we can all agree we found a good way around the sanctions, but I have to admit I'm actually working for a coalition of investigative journalists. And so I was wondering, why did you agree to do a deal with a sanctioned client when you said yourself that you could go to prison for that?
The United States federal government not only published a new website calling VPNs a human right, they're actually building their very own federal VPN to secure that right for people in other countries. And the same week that this news broke, state lawmakers here in the United States were voting to outright ban VPNs for American citizens. Seriously, our own government funding digital freedom abroad, but criminalizing it at home. In February of this year, Reuters broke a story that barely made a ripple in the news cycle. The United States State Department was quietly building an online portal hosted at freedom.gov, designed to help people in Europe and other countries route around their government's internet restrictions. Content their governments had banned, removed, or even just blocked. The State Department's tool of choice? A VPN. And right here on that website, they say something really important. They call VPN access a human right. This isn't a mistake, this is by design. When a government calls something a human right, it means it cannot be arbitrarily taken away. It means it transcends politics and party lines. It transcends borders. It means that access to encrypted communication is as fundamental as free speech, as essential as due process. That's the weight of those words. The United States federal government just put VPNs in that category. Now let's hope they meant it. Now, if you already know what a VPN is, hang on. Not everyone does. Let me explain it really quick, then we'll get to why this is so important. There are two tools that people use to stay private online: a proxy and a VPN. A proxy reroutes your traffic through a middleman server. The website that you browse, it sees the server's address instead of yours, but the connection itself is really unprotected. Anyone monitoring the network can still read exactly what you're sending and receiving. Of course, save for encrypted traffic. A VPN does the same rerouting, but it wraps everything inside of encryption before it ever leaves your device. Your internet provider sees an encrypted tunnel going from your network to the VPN provider, but that's all they see. The website sees a server address that isn't yours, and anyone intercepting the connection gets nothing readable. You're not just rerouted, you're protected. Now, to understand why the US government would build a federal VPN, you have to understand what's been happening between Washington, D.C. and Brussels for the past few years. The European Union has been aggressively regulating online speech. Under laws like the Digital Services Act, large platforms are required to remove content that the EU decides is illegal. Things like hate speech, propaganda, or what they consider disinformation. Germany alone issued nearly 500 content removal orders in a single year, forced providers to take down over 16,000 pieces of content. The US position, regardless of what party you ask, has generally been that that is censorship. The European regulators are using safety language to suppress political speech. Elon Musk's platform X was even fined over 120 million euros for not complying. Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, even went on record calling it a direct attack on American companies and their users. So the State Department's response was to begin building a tool that lets European citizens route around their own government's restrictions, and they're calling it freedom.gov. And as they build it, they're not mincing words. Right there on the landing page, the United States federal government declared VPN access a human right. Not a convenience, not a workaround, a human right. Now pay attention here. That's the federal government's position. Remember it, because it's going to get weird here over the next 90 seconds. The same week freedom.gov was making headlines, February 18th, 2026, the state of Wisconsin was holding a Senate vote on a bill called AB 105. On the surface, it was another one of these age verification bills that are spreading like wildfire around the United States. The ones claiming that they're protecting children online, and they're not. I have a whole video on this War on Digital Freedom series, and you should go watch it. But buried inside the bill was something that had never appeared in American law before: a VPN ban. The bill required websites, and I'm reading the actual language here, prevent persons from accessing the website from an Internet Protocol address or Internet Protocol address range that is linked to or known to be a virtual private network system or provider. In plain English, if you're using a VPN, you're blocked. Wisconsin was about to become the first state in the United States to ban VPN access to certain websites. Do you know what doesn't require a VPN? Buying Polymaker filament, which happens to be the sponsor of this video. 3D printers are literally the fundamental tool of freedom. They allow you to create anything that you want, but you need filament to feed them. So I'll have my link on the screen and in the description. Go check out their awesome filament. Matter of fact, they just released their brand new PLA Pro, and I have some videos on testing that, and I'll have that in the description, as well as a link and a coupon code that'll save you like 15%. All right, back to the video. And before you think this is just about people trying to dodge age checks on some adult websites, let's talk about who actually uses VPNs. Journalists use them to protect their sources. Domestic abuse survivors use them to hide their location from their abusers. Activists use them to organize without being surveilled. Remote workers use them to securely access their company's network. And regular people, millions of you, use them because you don't want your internet service provider building a complete profile of you in your browsing history and then selling it to advertisers. Think about that. If these technically illiterate lawmakers succeed at banning something like VPNs, they effectively end work from home. Every remote worker accessing their company's network securely, gone. Because a state legislator didn't understand the consequences of what they were banning. Now look at who this bill is targeting. It's not criminals, of course. It's targeting everyone. This is the war on digital freedom. And as governments around the world crack down on privacy and access to information, VPNs have become more critical than ever. They are the last line of defense between you and a surveillance state. And that's exactly why they must be protected. And now Wisconsin, it wasn't alone. Michigan went even further. A proposed bill there would have required internet service providers to actively monitor and block VPN connections across the entire state. Not just websites blocking VPN users, ISPs conscripted as surveillance enforcers, with fines up to $500,000 and even prison time for failing to comply. Your internet provider legally required to spy on your connection and shut down your privacy tools, or face $500,000 and getting locked up. Here's the part that should make you question whether anyone writing these laws has ever used the internet. A website cannot tell where a VPN user is located. When you connect through a VPN, the website sees the VPN server's address. That server might be in Dallas, it might be in Amsterdam, and the website has no way to know if the person behind it is in Madison, Wisconsin, or Geneva, Switzerland. When Wisconsin tried to pass a law requiring websites to block VPN users from their state, they weren't just proposing a bad law, they were literally proposing an impossible one. Now, Proton, one of the largest privacy companies in the world, spelled out exactly what would happen. To comply with Wisconsin's law, platforms would effectively have to block all VPN traffic, everywhere. Not just Wisconsin, but the entire world. One state legislator, one technically illiterate bill, breaking encrypted privacy tools for the entire internet. Now the EFF, that's the Electronic Frontier Foundation, they called it exactly what it was, a spectacularly bad idea written by people who cannot tell the difference between a security tool and a loophole. Now let me show you something. These are the countries that currently ban or at least severely restrict VPN use around the world. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. And on February 18th, 2026, Wisconsin was one Senate vote away from joining that list. Think about that for a moment. So now let's put this all into the same frame. Again, February 18th, 2026. The United States State Department announces a government-funded VPN portal to export digital freedom to Europe and other countries. The landing page calls internet privacy a human right. The same week, Wisconsin Senate votes on a bill to ban that exact tool domestically. Nobody coordinated that contradiction. Nobody had to. That's what makes it so revealing, because it tells you that this was never really about freedom. It was never really about protecting children either. It's about who controls the switch. When the US government wants to use privacy tools as leverage against a foreign government, VPNs are suddenly a human right. But when the same tools give ordinary American citizens the ability to move through the internet without being tracked, profiled, or monitored, suddenly they're a loophole that needs closing. Same tool, different politics, completely opposite laws. And the people writing these laws are counting on you not noticing. Now, how many of you actually knew that this was going on? I'd love to hear your comments below. Now, here's the part that they didn't count on. Wisconsin pulled the VPN ban, not because lawmakers had a change of heart, but because people made noise. The pushback was loud enough that they blinked. That's the whole game. These bills don't pass because they're inevitable. They pass because good people do nothing. The federal government put it in writing. VPNs are now a human right. Let's just hope that these states don't screw that up. Now, is using a VPN controlled by the federal government a good idea? Probably not. But that is a subject for an entirely different video. Now, in fact, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. How many of you would be willing to use a federal VPN? I mean, all of your data routing through a federal server? I don't know. Let me know. Okay, now what can we do? First, share this video, not for the algorithm, but because the person next to you probably has no idea that any of this is actually happening. Second, use a VPN. I don't really care which one, but pick one, pay for it, and use it. The more people that are using encrypted tools, the harder it becomes to legislate them away. Critical mass is the only defense that actually works. Because digital freedom isn't coming, it's already here. The question is whether or not we fight hard enough to keep it.
Let me play the devil's advocate that you hear every time we take a bad step towards more digital surveillance. Well, I don't have anything to hide. I don't really care. I don't have anything to hide. Well, why is that, a kindergarten answer?
Well, I would argue because a lot of these companies that are engaged in these mass surveillance, or the contractors really that are engaged in mass surveillance, don't ultimately have just watching what you're doing as being enough for them. They're ultimately interested in things like predictive analytics and predictive policing. So based on your behavior now and your behavior in the past, they want to use artificial intelligence to determine what you may do in the future. And in the case of predictive policing, that would be, well, we've determined that you may commit a crime in the future. And so we're going to, send you to a court-ordered physician, or, issue house arrest to stop crime before it happens, essentially.
Minority
is where a lot of these companies, and unfortunately it is that, and there's a lot of companies that have made massive inroads in that type of technology, even though it's been hugely discredited. There's several companies. I think the most notorious at this point was called Predpol. They've since rebranded, but they were less accurate than a coin toss, and people were being deprived of their liberty because of an algorithm that was hugely inaccurate. And ultimately, if you look in the UK, for example, some of these algorithms for facial recognition have been rolled out, even though they've been shown over there too to be hugely inaccurate. And there's no interest in changing vendors, even when this inaccuracy is demonstrated. So to me, that says that their goal is to have us induce and be obedience by the fact that you're being watched all the time, and anything you may do could be used against you, even if you're not doing anything wrong now. An algorithm could determine that certain, errant behaviors warrant you being added to a list of some type. And actually, Larry Ellison of Oracle, who is one of the main funders of Tony Blair's institute, that's one of the biggest pushers for digital ID in the UK, said this at an Oracle shareholder meeting, that, we're recording and surveilling everything, and citizens will be on their best behavior because they have to, essentially, paraphrasing.
The fact that Donald Trump is listening to that guy is terrifying to me. I mean, he has put some people around him on this tech board that are not friends of freedom and liberty. They're just not. Larry Ellison is leading that pack.
Yeah, a lot of them are, you know, I would argue overtly and also covertly globalist. You have people, you know, in that network you just mentioned, serving, for example, on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group, which is, you know, a well-known closed-door meeting, globalist conflab. And unfortunately, you know, I think some of them anyway, have been able to characterize their policies as libertarian, for example, even though some of those same oligarchs are on record saying that the free market is for losers. If you want to get rich, build a monopoly. And build monopolies, they have, unfortunately. But I think, again, this is what I was saying earlier about the World Economic Forum. You know, there's an effort to sell this since they couldn't sell it from the left. The goal now is to try and sell it somehow from the right. And to try and frame it under metrics and dialectics that'll be more appealing to the group that was most against these policies just a few years ago. And unfortunately, you know, with AI and all of that, it could happen if people aren't vigilant. You know, just a few years ago, someone like Elon Musk was a major promoter of things like carbon markets. And pricing carbon, for example, and that was actually why he had a falling out with Trump in Trump's first administration, was because Trump pulled out of the Paris agreements, and Elon Musk was like, well, I can't have that. So have these oligarchs really changed, or have they instead tried to make themselves more appealing because they've noticed the change in public opinion and want to try and get, you know, us to continue to buy into their solutions that they have a lot of money to spend convincing us are actually good and rebranding them. And again, this is why I say it's important to focus on the policies specifically.
How do we, well, wait, before I get there, let me go back to digital ID. Tie this into a digital currency. Because this is the highway system for that, isn't it?
Sure, yeah. Well, Larry Fink is now running, I believe, the World Economic Forum. He's acting chairman. And in addition to saying that everything will be tokenized, he's said that everything will soon be on the same universal digital ledger or database, and that everything on that database will have a unique identifier number. So for you as an individual, your identifier number will presumably be your digital ID or directly linked to that. But everything will have a digital ID. The tokenization agenda in particular seeks to tokenize not just, you know, assets that we traditionally think of, like real estate, for example, or gold, or, you know, physical assets as well as digital assets like Bitcoin. There's a major effort connected with people like Fink, and also people like Mark Carney, who's now Prime Minister of Canada, to tokenize the natural world and transform it into financial assets. And there was an attempt to do this to an extent under the Biden administration, I believe through the Department of Interior, with natural asset corporations, but that has not gone away. And there are groups, for example, one of the creators of the ETF model originally, which BlackRock now owns, iShares. His name is Peter Knez, I think is how you pronounce it. He's trying to turn the Amazon rainforest into a digital commodity, sort of similar to Bitcoin in terms of like the scarcity idea that, you know, each hectare of the Amazon rainforest would represent you know, a token, and then financialize it that way, and then each hectare would then have its unique identifier, right, on the blockchain, and would be, you know, serviced by surveillance drones and all sorts of stuff. So even our most like natural, the places we conceptualize as the most natural places on Earth, these people want to come in, place surveillance technology and, you know, tokenize it and put it on a blockchain and use it to, you know, I would argue in the case particularly of natural asset corporations and the group behind it, the Intrinsic Exchange Group, they just want to open up a huge new asset class. They call it nature's opportunity, so that they can continue engaging in the same type of bad behavior that, for example, brought us the 2008 financial crisis. by, quintupling basically the amount of assets currently in play. It's
I had a
very,
guy,
very insane.
I had a guy who worked very, very, very high up at Citibank, and he told me around 2008. He said, "Glenn, don't worry about the financial system." And I'm like, And he said, we're never going to go broke. I mean, do you know how much just the national parks are worth? And I looked at him and said, are you seriously telling me that we should commoditize the national parks? And he said, it's going to happen. And I wonder now if this is what he was talking about, if it was just a digital, not actually selling them, it's just a digital commoditization of our parks.
Yeah. So apply this now to the phrase that we all heard during the COVID era, you'll own nothing and be happy. Well,
yes.
There's certain people that want to own everything, and that includes things that have never been able to be owned before, that were considered things like the public commons, like rivers, lakes, the ocean itself, natural forests, all sorts of it. These people want to put all of that into the financial system, fractionalize it, tokenize it, and sell pieces of it around. Use it to speculate on. I mean, it's very bonkers. So, yeah, and so this is just one aspect of the digital currency play. Obviously, there's a lot more than that just going on as well. I would argue that a lot of this push, particularly in the U.S., for dollar stablecoins supposedly being better than a central bank digital currency, also falls into this paradigm we talked about earlier of, moving from the public to the private, of the public-private partnership, because a lot of these stablecoin issuers, if the big concerns about CBDCs was that they're seizable, they're surveillable, and they're programmable. Well, all of those three things also can apply to stablecoins. The only difference is that you would have a private company issue it and control it. But we've seen time and again how a lot of these private entities are willing to do that when contacted. Just look at how Bank of America behaved with January 6th, people accused of wrongdoing on that day, for example. They have no qualms in doing that and engaging in those type of activities. And the biggest dollar stablecoin issuer, Tether, which just hired Bo Hines from the White House, they have openly said that they are a close partner of the U.S. government for dollar hegemony globally, and have uploaded the FBI, the Secret Service, and other aspects of the U.S. government onto its platform directly, and have seized tethers, from people just because, the government told them to. And this was during the Biden administration. So they obviously are willing to do that under any administration. And it's essentially functioning as a de facto public-private partnership, even though we're being told it's much better than a CBDC. But in terms of its impacts on civil liberties, that's not necessarily true. So again, vigilance is important here.
What if I told you a single man exposed the world's biggest surveillance secrets? Meet Edward Snowden, the man who leaked over 1 million classified documents in 2013. The US calls him a traitor, but many see him as a hero. He exposed how the government was secretly spying on its own citizens. Through secret programs, they collected your calls, texts, and even your location. Snowden was a security guard turned CIA tech expert, and he had access to everything. While US officials denied any wrongdoing, Snowden knew the truth. Imagine watching your leaders lie, knowing you hold the evidence to expose them. The news broke first in The Guardian and The Washington Post, shaking the world. Today, Snowden lives in exile, still considered America's most wanted criminal. But the real question is, do you see him as a hero or a traitor?
In 2013, one man pressed send, and the world would never see privacy the same way again. His name? Edward Snowden. To some, he's a whistleblower, an American patriot who risked everything to warn us of mass surveillance. To others, he's a traitor who handed classified secrets to America's enemies. But how did an ordinary systems administrator become the most famous fugitive on Earth? Today on Forgotten History, we're uncovering the story of Edward Snowden. Who is Edward Snowden? What did he do? Why did he do it? Why is he a fugitive? Should he be hailed as a hero or traitor? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Edward Joseph Snowden was born in 1983 in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and raised in a military family. His father, Lonnie, was a warrant officer in the U.S. Coast Guard, and his mother, Elizabeth, was a clerk at the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland. His older sister, Jessica, was a lawyer at the Federal Judicial Center in Washington, D.C. His maternal grandfather, Edward J. Barrett, was a rear admiral in the Coast Guard who later became a senior official with the FBI and was at the Pentagon during the September 11, 2001 attack. In the early 1990s, while still in grade school, Snowden moved with his family to Fort Meade area of Maryland. During high school, he contracted mononucleosis and missed nearly 9 months of classes, ultimately dropping out, but later earned his GED. He attended Anne Arundel Community College and enrolled in the online master's program of the University of Liverpool, England, without completing it. In 2005, he worked for the University of Maryland. The following year, he joined the Central Intelligence Agency, and in 2009, he moved to Dell Corporation, where he managed computer systems for the National Security Agency. In 2013, he spent 2 months at Booz Allen Hamilton, where his primary goal was to gather additional NSA documents. Over the years, he had held a range of positions, beginning as a security guard, then working for the CIA, and later serving as a contractor for the NSA. During his time as a contractor, he had deep access to classified intelligence gathering operations as a systems administrator and infrastructure analyst. This was giving him access to some of the most sensitive information on Earth. He wasn't a James Bond spy in the field. He was a digital locksmith, a man with the keys to the kingdom, and those keys would soon open a Pandora's box. In 2013, Snowden was working in Hawaii for the NSA through Booz Allen Hamilton when he came across something. In Hawaii, from the outside, it looked like paradise, palm trees, beaches, and a steady paycheck. But behind his computer screen, Snowden watched as the U.S. government built a surveillance machine unlike anything the world had ever seen, and he was a part of it. In what he considered a personal mission, he copied tens of thousands of classified files and booked a one-way ticket to Hong Kong. He took tens of thousands of classified documents and met with journalists Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, and Ewan McCaskill, providing them with documents detailing global surveillance programs. The meeting was cloak and dagger. In a Hong Kong hotel room, Snowden, nervous, soft-spoken, handed over digital evidence that the NSA was spying not just on enemies, but on everyone, including U.S. citizens. The files revealed secret programs that shocked the world. One was called PRISM, a program that allowed the NSA to directly access the servers of tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Apple. They surveilled average Americans without warrants. This was called upstream collection, tapping into the internet's backbone, vacuuming up emails, chats, and browsing data. This included metadata programs, logging the phone records of millions of Americans, who they called, when, and for how long. They had the phone numbers, the times of the calls, the contacts, and the length of the conversations. These revelations exposed retired United States Air Force Lieutenant General and former Director of National Intelligence, James Robert Clapper, Jr. Clapper held several key positions within the United States intelligence community, such as Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency from 1992 until 1995. Clapper was the first Director of Defense Intelligence within the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and simultaneously the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence under President George W. Bush. Clapper served as the Director of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency from September 2001 until June 2006. James Clapper denied under oath during a congressional hearing that any of this had happened intentionally. However, it later became clear that it was an active, premeditated operation conducted in violation of U.S. law, carried out with the approval of the Obama administration after Clapper was confirmed by the Senate as Director of National Intelligence in June 2010. Snowden had specialized in upstream collection, tapping into the internet backbone and capturing massive amounts of global communications, bulk metadata collection, logging the phone records of millions of Americans, which, again, Clapper denied. The Five Eyes Corporation was a deep intelligence sharing network between the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. But it wasn't just Americans. Snowden's leaks showed the U.S. spied on allies, even tapping the personal phone of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Suddenly, Orwell's 1984 didn't feel like fiction. It felt like policy. Once the leaks hit headlines, Snowden became the most wanted man in the world. The U.S. government revoked his passport. Snowden had fled from Hong Kong in June 2013, attempting to reach asylum in Latin America. But during a layover in Moscow, he found himself stranded, finally realizing the U.S. government revoked his passport after he was charged with treason under the 1917 Espionage Act on June 21, 2013. Specifically, the charges filed in the criminal complaint were 18 U.S. Code 641, theft of government property, 18 U.S. Code 793, Section D, unauthorized communication of national defense information, 18 U.S. Code 798, Section A, Paragraph 3, willful communication of classified intelligence information to an unauthorized person. Each of the three charges carried a maximum possible prison term of 10 years. The criminal complaint was initially secret, but was unsealed a week later. Snowden's leaks ignited a global firestorm. For weeks he lived inside the transit zone of Sheremetyevo Airport, unable to leave, unable to go home. He was a man without a country. Eventually, Russia granted him temporary asylum in 2022. He still lives in Russia with his wife Lindsay Mills, who joined him later, and their children. Washington called him a traitor. Human rights activists called him a whistleblower. Snowden himself, he just called himself an American who didn't want to live in a world without privacy. Congress held hearings. Courts later ruled that parts of the NSA's mass phone data collection was illegal and unconstitutional. Tech companies scrambled to save face, rolling out end-to-end encryption in messaging applications such as WhatsApp, iMessage, Signal, and others. Governments worldwide were forced to confront the question, where is the line between national security and personal freedom? For many, Snowden was a hero who sacrificed his life to defend his civil liberties. For others, he was a reckless traitor who handed America's playbook to its enemies. In a May 2014 interview with NBC News, Snowden accused the U.S. government of trying to use one position here or there in his career to distract from the totality of his experience, downplaying him as a low-level analyst. In his words,
I was trained as a spy in sort of the traditional sense of the word, in that I lived and worked undercover overseas, pretending to work in a job that I'm not, and even being assigned a name that was not mine.
He said he had worked for the NSA undercover overseas and for the Defense Intelligence Agency and had developed sources and methods to keep information and people secure in the most hostile and dangerous environments around the world.
So when they say I'm a low-level systems administrator, that I don't know what I'm talking about, I'd say it's somewhat misleading.
Snowden has a good point given his apparent security clearance and access to top-secret information, something not really available to low-level analysts. Snowden said that he had told multiple employees and 2 supervisors about his concerns, but the NSA disputes his claim. Snowden elaborated in January 2014, saying, I made tremendous efforts to report these programs to coworkers, supervisors, and anyone with the proper clearance who would listen. The reactions of those I told about the scale of the constitutional violations ranged from deeply concerned to appalled, but no one was willing to risk their jobs, families, and possibly even freedom to go through what Thomas Andrews Drake did. Snowden was referring to Air Force and Navy veteran Thomas A. Drake, who was a senior executive at the National Security Agency for 7 years. Drake was apparently appalled at this information, and he exchanged hundreds of emails with a reporter, and the two met in the Washington, D.C. area half a dozen times. Drake also researched stories for the journalist, sending emails to other NSA employees asking questions on this subject and accessing classified documents himself to obtain information. He was also indicted under the Espionage Act. Many also call him a whistleblower, others a traitor. In 2016, Snowden became the president of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, a San Francisco-based nonprofit organization that aims to protect journalists from hacking and government surveillance. He also has a job at an unnamed Russian IT company. In 2017, he married his girlfriend, Lindsay Mills. On September 17, 2019, his memoir, Permanent Record, was published. Today, Snowden remains in Russia, where he was granted permanent residency and later Russian citizenship. He lives there with his wife, Lindsay, and their children, 2 sons. He continues to speak via video conferences and interviews on privacy, digital rights, and government overreach. But in the eyes of the U.S. government, he is still a fugitive. If he ever steps back onto American soil, he faces trial and likely decades in prison. Snowden didn't sell secrets for money or political ideology. He didn't defect to Moscow on purpose. He claimed that he acted because the Constitution was being violated in secret. But his critics argue by revealing classified methods, he gave America's adversaries an edge and fled into the arms of Russia. One of the great arguments against Snowden's method was that he could have gone to any one of the senators or representatives on their respective intelligence committees in closed-door depositions and presented his evidence. However, Snowden's response to that was that he did not know who he could trust, Republican or Democrat, regarding the constitutional violations. And he may have a point. Officials label him a traitor who damaged U.S. national security. The intelligence community argued the leaks helped adversaries like Russia and China adapt against U.S. surveillance. The courts later ruled that parts of the NSA's bulk phone data collection was in fact illegal and unconstitutional. This supports Snowden's methods and his purpose. In the end, Snowden's story is less about one man and more about us. How much freedom are we willing to trade for security? How much surveillance can democracy survive? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, if one man with a thumb drive could change the world, what else don't we know? But what about those who are responsible for all of this? Well, Clapper himself was accused of perjury for telling a congressional committee hearing that the NSA did not spy or collect any type of data on millions of Americans. Then he changed his story to say it was done unwittingly, meaning not on purpose. After the hearing, one senator asked for his resignation, and a group of 26 senators complained about Clapper's responses under questioning. In November 2016, Clapper resigned as Director of National Intelligence, effective at the end of President Obama's second term. On September 17, 2019, the United States filed a lawsuit against Snowden for violations of non-disclosure agreements with the CIA and NSA, alleging that Snowden had, in fact, violated pre-publication obligations related to writing his memoir, Permanent Record. Also listed in the lawsuit were the publishers Macmillan Publishing Group, LLC, Henry Holt and Company, and Holtzbrink. The Honorable Liam O'Grady, a judge in the Alexandria Division of the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, ruled in favor of the plaintiff, meaning the United States government, by summary judgment against Snowden on both counts of the action. The judgment also found that Snowden had been paid speaker honorariums totaling $1 million for a series of 56 speeches delivered by video link. The ruling allowed the U.S. government to collect the proceeds from his book and speeches, and means that Snowden has to relinquish more than $5.2 million earned to a constructive trust created to transfer the money to the government. Edward Snowden exposed the largest leak of classified surveillance programs in U.S. history, ignited a global debate on privacy and government spying, and remains a fugitive in Russia, seen either as a defender of civil liberties or a national security threat, depending upon one's perspective. Was Snowden a hero who exposed the illegal actions of the U.S. government, or was he a traitor who exposed this information to the world? We will let you decide. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.
What is the Patriot Act turning into?
The administration worked with a group to designate these Americans as potential domestic terrorists.
All the mass shootings that are happening, if they were really surveilling everybody, don't you think those people had some type of communication or...
This is one of the facilities capturing all of our phone calls.
The what building?
The Long Lines building. Can you confirm that NSA is not capturing hundreds of millions of Americans' records? And he says...
Perhaps, but not wittingly.
What got you interested in the topic? How to pop up on your radar? 'Cause it's been going on for a long time.
Been going on for a while. It popped up on my radar for when I was doing an episode about 33 Thomas Street, which is the Long Lines building. But
the what building?
The Long Lines building. It's the AT&T Long Lines building, 33 Thomas Street, New York. Codenamed Titan Point. And New Yorkers will know this building. It's the weirdest building you'll ever see. It has no windows, just has exhaust vents. It's no lights. So when it's nighttime in the city, you've got all the lights on the skyline and you just got this void for 32 Thomas. It's a very strange building. And all you hear is the exhaust. And the lobby looks normal until you get up kind of close and it's like, wow, there's a lot of security here. And you can't get in there. So it's codenamed Titan Point, which we learned from the Edward Snowden documents. And it turned out that this is one of the facilities, one of several, but this is a big one, that was capturing all of our phone calls. You know, they talk about, well, it's just metadata. But metadata is enough because metadata includes who you're calling, what time, where they are, your location. So you can be totally tracked. And it helps them create that network, which the Patriot Act allows, where if you're a person of interest, anyone you communicate with is automatically a person of interest. And it just is a geometric progression. So when I was doing that episode, I was really just wanted to cover the weird building and, you know, what NSA was doing there, capturing the records. And it just started to get emotional because whenever I can, I just play James Clapper line at Congress, you know, whenever I can, when he's asked, so can you confirm that that NSA is not capturing millions or hundreds of millions of Americans' records? And he says, no, sir, we're not, you know, intentionally or something like that. And then later he says, well, I told the most truthful, you know, least truthful, whatever it was. And then eventually had to apologize because the Snowden documents revealed they're capturing everything. So it's not just metadata. They were doing whole capture of phone calls, all kinds of stuff. NSA was embedded inside of Google and Yahoo and Microsoft so that everything on like your Google Drive was accessible. If you look at the PowerPoint, the engineers are so excited they have like emojis and smiley faces, like we got it, we finally got into Google. So that was probably the first episode that got me really thinking, okay, every so often I'm going to do a government corruption, government transparency episode. Try to make it fun, but the point is, you know, do not trust them. They're constantly lying to us. And there's no regard to the Constitution at all. Now, the Patriot Act, for me, it's kind of weird because I'm a New Yorker. I was there for 9/11, and it's very emotional for New Yorkers that were there. Still very emotional. You know, I had a friend who was a fireman there as part of cleanup, and he was a broken man after that, just completely broken. And my brother had friends in one of the towers that came down. So it's close to us. So I remember I was all in with whatever we got to do to get these guys. Mm-hmm. Patriot Act, let's do it. But we kind of expanded the government's powers a lot there. And it seemed like it happened pretty quickly. So you've got 9/11, and the Patriot Act is signed, I think, like October 16th or 20. Like it was like 4-6 weeks that they got this giant bill together. So either they had some really smart lawyers or this was kind of hanging around. Like, and here's an opportunity to do it. Mm-hmm. And that leads into the 9/11 conspiracy, which kind of makes sense, which I don't go into on my show.
Why don't you go into that?
Because it's a taboo topic and it's emotionally charged, and the bad guys are the government. And if we learned that 9/11 really was an inside job, I don't know how that doesn't really challenge your patriotism. Now, I consider myself a patriot. I love my country. I don't like the people that run it. I like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I really like those. And I'm very libertarian, borderline anarchist in a political sense, not like craziness, meaning like I don't think we need much government for anything. Keep us safe abroad. Domestically, keep it local. That's kind of how I feel. I think the federal government's way too involved in our lives in every different level.
I'm with you.
But the Patriot Act violates the First Amendment in a few different ways. Free speech is gone. So if you say anything that's considered dangerous or explosive, suddenly you're on a list. And then you can be gag ordered. So that's prior restraint. You can't do that. Then you've got the Fourth Amendment violations where illegal search and seizure. You can't search through Americans without probable cause. You just can't. But the Patriot Act says you no longer need probable cause. You just need to be relevant. So if you're relevant to an investigation, then we don't need a warrant. We can just look into your files. And this gets renewed time and time again. So it's not a left-right Democrat Republican. They just these are sunset clauses that keep getting re-signed. I forget the numbers offhand, but 215 is certainly one of them. And the Patriot Act is mostly used for finding drug dealers. It's not really used for terrorism. It never really was. We don't really know if it ever stopped anything. And then, the IC and the government will say, well, you don't know because we can't tell you, but we stopped this or that. Well, but did you know? At some point you have to tell us if it worked, because we need to decide if we still want to do this, because you're encroaching on a First Amendment right, our Fourth, our Fifth Amendment, due process, habeas corpus. And I thought this was just supposed to be for like foreign agents. But now if an American is on the phone with someone who's a foreign national, now this American is wrapped up in the Patriot Act. When what should happen is as soon as who's ever surveil foreigners all you want. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Leave my citizens alone. So as soon as you find out, well, all right, this person of interest is on the phone with an American, well, then it stops. Now we have to bring this out of the Patriot Act and put it into our legal system and have a judge look at it and all of that. Not a FISA court rubber stamp where FISA is like 99.97%. Just get yes, go whatever you got to do. That's another violation of separation of powers. You have no oversight. It just seems like doesn't seem like it's what it is.
It's interesting too, because if they were doing that with all the just one aspect, all the mass shootings that are happening, if they were really surveilling everybody, don't you think those people maybe have had some type of communication or I mean, it's been proven, right? There's been things on Facebook, there's been things on Instagram. If they're on there, they're definitely in text messagings and voice calls and all of that stuff. Unless they want that stuff to happen, maybe they do. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they use it against the Second Amendment.
Well, rather than even speculate, let's look at an actual case where at some point, I don't remember when, during the Biden administration, remember you had all these parents that were protesting about whatever trans issues or whatever they were. I'm not interested in that. Believe what you want to believe on that issue. That's none of my business. What I care about is the administration worked with a group to write a letter to the president to designate these Americans as potential domestic terrorists and use the Patriot Act to surveil them and gather records on them and look into them. We can't have that. I don't know why there was an outrage over that. These are Americans from the jump. So the Patriot Act shouldn't apply, but it does. And no one really challenges it. I don't think anyone even really talks about this that much.
I've never heard about it.
It all goes back to Snowden because they lied and lied and lied. And then the Snowden documents were it was just such a bombshell. But not only are they collecting all this stuff, I mean, all of us, every single one of us, but they were in our files. They can read our email. They can, our search history, everything about us. Where if if I'm charged with something and you use the Patriot Act against me, my first thing would be like, well, it's all inadmissible. I'm an American citizen. I have Fourth Amendment right. You didn't have probable cause. Let me see the warrant. Let me see the affidavit. What judge did you use? Well, we used the FISA judge. Well, with the FISA reviews are done in complete secrecy. There's no transparency. You can't sit in on those. You can't wander into the courtroom like you can in most towns here and just watch proceedings. It's all secret. It's just, you've got Richard Nixon, who turns the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, against his political enemies. That's bad. So then we review that, then you have the Church Committee, and out of that, you get the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978 is FISA.
What was the Church Committee?
That was reviewing all what like CIA and FBI was doing. All the bad stuff kind of came to light during the Church Committee. And that made Congress realize, they're using FBI and to actually go after political enemies. We can't have that. So we'll have FISA, which will review these. But then FISA starts to get abused. And then when the Patriot Act comes along in 2001, it supercharges FISA. And now everything is just rubber stamped. And we don't know really what they're doing with it. We just know they renew it. And whether it's Trump or Biden or Obama, they sign with the pen and there's applause and America's going to be safe. And I don't know if there's any evidence of that. Out of that time, we got the TSA. I think the TSA is just in the way. I think in 2015 they sent they were called red teams to test the TSA, secret shop them, and they created mock weapons and mock explosives. Take a guess at what percentage got through.
Oh man,
95.
Are you serious?
95% got through.
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.
What would you do if the government passed a law that said police could show up at your front door and walk into your house just to check on how you're storing your guns? No warrant, no crime, just an inspection because you own a firearm. That sounds insane, except that's exactly what a bill introduced in Minnesota is proposing. And before you think I'm exaggerating, listen to how the chairman of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus describes the bill.
And this morning we had a new gun control bill drop. That is Senate File 4290, which is a new take on the ban on semi-automatic rifles and magazines holding more than 10 rounds. This time it is from Senator Dr. Matt Klein, as he likes to make sure that he's an MD. This bill, similar to the other bans, is a total ban on possession of magazines and rifles unless you go and get a certificate from your police department that allows you to keep these firearms.
So let me translate that. You bought a firearm legally, you passed a background check, you followed every law on the books, but now the government says if you want to keep that firearm, you have to go to the police department and ask for a certificate that allows you to keep it. Think about how insane that is. A constitutional right now requires government permission. That's not a right, that's a permission slip, and permission slips can be taken away. Now listen to the part that should make every American stop and go, what the hell?
In doing so, you have to allow the police to inspect your home without a warrant.
Did you catch that?
Allow the police to inspect your home without a warrant.
You want to keep your firearm? Fine. Just give up your Fourth Amendment rights. That is literally what they're asking you to do. The government is saying you can exercise your Second Amendment, but only if you surrender your protection against warrantless searches. That is the government leveraging one constitutional right to strip you of another one. And that should terrify everyone, not just gun owners, everyone. We've been saying this for years. Once the second falls, the rest will start falling. And here's the moment where the whole thing becomes obvious. So let me get this straight. In order to keep a firearm already legally owned, I have to register with the government, ask the police department for permission, and agree to let officers enter my home without a warrant to inspect it. At that point, you do not own the gun anymore. The government does.
You can't carry your magazines anymore holding more than 10 rounds. You can only possess these firearms and magazines at your home, on property you own or control, or at a licensed firing range, whatever that is, because there is no such thing in Minnesota law.
So now let's run through the list. You cannot carry the magazine. You cannot take the firearm most places. You have to register it. You have to get permission. You have to let the government inspect your house. At what point do we stop pretending this is about safety? Because criminals are not doing any of this. Criminals are not registering firearms. Criminals are not asking police for certificates. Criminals are not inviting officers into their fucking house to inspect their safes. The only people this targets is you and me. And then comes the punishment.
And Dr. Klein, of course, will put you in prison for up to 5 years if you violate his gun control law.
5 years in prison for owning the wrong magazine. Meanwhile, violent criminals in some of these same jurisdictions are getting plea deals and walking out before the ink on the police report even dries. But if you have the wrong piece of plastic or metal attached to your firearm, you could be sitting in prison for half a decade. Somebody please make that make sense. And then of course there is this.
He exempts the police, federal agents, and government officials, including himself.
Of course he does. Of course police are exempt. Of course federal agents are exempt. Of course government officials are exempt, because the people writing these laws never intended to live under them. The same politicians telling you certain firearms are too dangerous for regular citizens somehow trust themselves with those exact same firearms. The same politicians telling you the government needs to inspect your home do not seem too interested in letting the government inspect theirs. Funny how that works, because if something is truly too dangerous for society, why does it suddenly become safe when politicians have them? But here's the part people really need to understand. This is not just about gun control. This is about normalizing government intrusion into private homes. Because once the government establishes the idea that it can enter your home without a warrant for one reason, it becomes much easier to justify doing it for another reason. Today, it is firearms. Tomorrow, it could be something else. And that is how constitutional rights slowly become conditional privileges. Let me flip this around so people understand how insane this is. Imagine a government saying this about free speech. You can say whatever you want online, but in order to keep that right, the government gets to monitor your private messages and search your phone whenever they want. They're fucking doing it right now anyway. What the fuck? But either way, if they said it out loud, people would lose their mind. And they should, because the Constitution does not say your rights exist until the government feels safe enough to allow them. The moment people accept the idea that rights come with conditions set by the government, they stop being rights. They become privileges, and privileges can be taken away whenever the government decides it is convenient. And if you think the government being able to enter your home without a warrant just because you own a firearm sounds crazy today, just wait until people stop paying attention. And speaking of paying attention, I know some of you all are paying attention to this awesome shirt that I'm wearing.
We're with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Let me guess, this isn't about the alcohol or the tobacco.
It's my ATF shirt. It's my favorite one, actually. I like the shirt a lot. As you can see here, it actually comes in hats, comes in hoodies, comes in shirts, comes in drinkware, you name it, you got it. Baby, there you go, right? It's pretty fitting for this video when you think about it. You know, cops showing up at your house. I guess you're not here for the alcohol and tobacco. Yeah, but either way, I'm gonna put a link in the description section of this video so you can check this out. And also check out the I'm the Militia hat and shirt, hoodies, and all that good stuff. One thing's for certain and two things are for sure. Politicians and tech giants don't want gun content to be recommended to you. And we're all fighting this culture war together. Now, you can help do your part by liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel, but most importantly, sharing this video with at least one person. Together, we can stop the suppression of our two-way rights. And don't forget to click the link in the description section of this video for the products that I mentioned in this video.
In our next conversation, we're going to push ahead. I want you to go with me into the future. We've had conversations about artificial intelligence. We've talked about the future of investing with AI. We even talked about the potential of how AI is going to create flying vehicles and drones and so on and so forth. What I want you to do now with me is enter into a conversation that's going to require you to imagine a future that maybe isn't completely here yet, but is being built for us as human beings. And the person we're going to have do that is someone named Catherine Austin Fitts. She's the president of Solari Inc. She's an investment banker during the presidency of George H.W. Bush. She served as the United States Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. But what Catherine's been doing for so many years is educating leaders around how our economy works and what the future of our economy may look like and how it could impact human flourishing. It's a topic that not a lot of Christian leaders have heard about. It's a topic that not a lot of church leaders are talking about. And I want to introduce that topic today because I think it's going to be essential for us to know how to navigate this coming future control grid. And I want you to understand that language. And I want you to understand specifically what we're talking about. So to introduce this segment, I'm going to begin by just showing you a short clip. This was back right in the era of 2020. And this was from one of the heads of the central bank as we think about the entire world, telling us about where the future of our currency is going to go and what the plans are for the future. So let's listen to this.
Our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
Would you join me in welcoming Catherine Austin Fitts? Welcome, Catherine. Now, we all just heard this speech from a few years ago. Could you describe who was this and what was he saying to us?
The Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. And the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of central banks. The top 63 members of, or the top 63 central banks in the world are members. And what he is describing is their push for programmable money. He called it central bank digital currencies, but it could be stable coins that are hooked up to a social credit system. There are many different ways of doing programmable money. Here's what he told you. He told you the money that you have is not your money, it's their money. So he said it's an expression of central bank liability. And what he said, and of course this is the beauty of AI and software and telecommunications and the different systems we're putting into place, what he said is, we can make the rules centrally, the central bankers can make the rules, and we can enforce them using the technology. Now, what that means is we've all lived in a world where the bankers ran monetary policy, but our legislative representatives and our executive branch ran fiscal policy. What he's saying is we can now run fiscal policy through your money, and that means we can do taxation without representation. So that's the message. We intend to have total central control.
We'll talk a little bit more about how this technology is advancing. We know of digital IDs, we know of currencies, and there's so much happening even with AI. How do we, as just people of faith, start to navigate what is coming? And could you just paint a picture of what this digital control grid might look like?
Right. So if you're a Christian, you know what the mark of the beast is. And in fact, what we're talking about is building the different building blocks to build into the mark of the beast. And if you look at what's happening with digital technology, none of this can happen without 100% digitized financial system. So the two chief components are a digital ID and programmable money. And once you get rid of cash and analog systems, if you look at how the financial system is being sort of organized and fused, we have all these different pieces. And if you talk to most people, they find each piece convenient. The problem is when you get to 100% digital money and you kill cash and you kill any analog system like checks, what happens is the system fuses, bang, and you get, next slide, the digital concentration camp. So the example I used earlier this afternoon is, imagine getting a call in 2028 and someone says, a representative from the government, either you transgender your children or we're going to turn off your money. Unless you take this pharmaceutical or you give it to your children, we're going to turn off your money. We have another pandemic. They say, you're locked down, your money won't work if you leave your home. We've decided you shouldn't buy real meat, you shouldn't eat real meat, we're going to have you buy lab-grown meat. Your money will only work to buy lab-grown meat. So we're talking about a world that if you've grown up with the blessings of liberty that we've all enjoyed, you can't imagine. You can't imagine that anyone would do this. However, as a Christian, you can imagine who might do this.
Well, and that's what I love about your perspective. You understand that there's an enemy, there's a spiritual war that's going on, that's being waged, that wants to control human beings.
This is not, there is no financial problem. We have a governance problem. We have a secret governance system, and at the root of that secret governance system, it is a spiritual war. And so we are up against Satan.
So talk about faith communities and the role of leaders in this room who lead faith communities locally in cities all over America and some around the world. What are the ways we can resist this type of control?
So the first thing we can do, I used to have a pastor who'd say, if we can face it, God can fix it. If we can face it, God can fix it. And that's why it's so important to bring transparency. What I will tell you is one of the most effective tools, and a tool activists use all day long, dealing with this kind of control grid is prayer. So prayer has a very important role. But there are many practical things we can do. One is to use cash and use checks and keep analog systems alive. This can only happen if we go to 100% digital systems and we allow our money and our finances to be centralized. And so there's a great amount of things we can do to decentralize. It involves food and health as well, because in fact, if you look at controlling the money, you can't control the money unless you also control the food. So anything we can do, from gardening to supporting our local farmers, buying at our local farmers markets, anything we can do to build the kind of world we want with excellent local food systems and excellent health, it adds much more friction to the system. So use cash and walk back the digital systems, and build the kind of fresh food and successful health systems that are designed to keep you healthy and not let you be controlled.
Even in the US, there's been this push for people to get real ID. I'm sure many people in the room have it. There was sort of this belief you couldn't fly without one. The government used that to start to create, which is essentially a national ID system. Why are you alarmed about a national ID system, and what are other options people may have?
So you can fly. I mean, I fly all the time, but I use a passport, which is, I would say, less successful as an interoperable system that plugs into the global systems. So if you are in Tennessee, there are 5 states in the country that will allow you to go back in and get the real ID off your driver's license. Tennessee is one of them. So the real ID started with the Patriot Act, and they tried to push and finally got the states to do it through the DMV system. You do need a federal passport or ID to fly, and certainly to fly internationally. So if you get rid of your real ID, you do need to have a passport. Right. And I have a passport, I would rather have that. So if you're in Tennessee, you can walk in and get a new driver's license without the real ID.
If you were speaking to the next generation, one of the tools and ways in which people are drawn into this path where we start to give up our rights, many times it's through convenience. It's this offer of convenience, right, and we start to trade our freedom for the convenience being offered. How would you educate this younger generation with wisdom about what's to come and why it's not worth trading freedom for convenience?
So I would help them understand the dangers of allowing your transactions to be observed by the most dangerous people in the world. So help them understand the benefits of privacy, but also help them get excited about what can be done with analog systems, And analog systems are not just cash or checks, but they're local community currencies, they're barter. There's all sorts of opportunities to transact locally. You can use gold and silver. You can use coins, but there's all sorts of opportunities to build up more profitable local businesses and farms. So one of the things I love to do is work with young people who see the opportunity to help build more profitable local business on Main Street. And so, and it's these ideas working together. It's one of the reasons I really encourage everybody to team up with the local farmers, because the farmers work on low margins, and anything we can do to help them become more profitable is excellent, and using cash helps. The person who runs our Team Cash, we have a financial transaction freedom website with a wealth of ideas of how you can push back on these things, but one of them is our Team Cash. And Susan Lucius runs Team Cash. She's in South Dakota. 1 million people in South Dakota, Gabe, I want you to guess how much they pay in credit card fees that leave South Dakota every year.
$1 billion.
700 per person, $700 million, almost $1 billion.
Wow.
Imagine if all that money was pulsating through Main Street and our local farms and small communities. So there's a very profitable opportunity if you start to turn this around.
So for some of you, this is the first time you're hearing about some of this. It's like, what are we talking about? How do I learn more? Should I really be concerned about that? Isn't everything just going to work out okay? I get it. I think people like Catherine are gifted at seeing a little bit further forward because they've had such experience in our history to understand how economies work, the way the world works, the way currencies work. And I think for the Christian community, it's going to be imperative that we lead conversations. If people don't understand that there's a parallel structure being created, a way to operate that is more of a kingdom system that's operating against what the beast system that's going to be created, people won't ever opt out of the other system. And so we have to create those kind of countercultures together where we have trusted relationships. And just your final thoughts, but trusted relationships is the thing I know, want people to understand is the thing they can be building now for that future.
So one of the things we struggle with in our lives, our team and our subscribers, is how do we get our kids off the screen? And the other day I read a wonderful survey where somebody went to all the kids and said, why are you always on the screens? And they said, we want to be with our friends, and the only way we can be with our friends is to be online with our friends, because you won't let us play outside unsupervised. And so I wanted to thank you, because you're getting everybody together. And the most wonderful analog thing we can do is get together and build shared intelligence about this. So I really commend you for doing this, Gabe, because it's a wonderful group.
Well, I want to also encourage people to follow you. She has a website called solari.com, SOLARI.com, that is a further deeper dive into education around all of these topics where you can explore the areas that you are interested in. And let's all together thank Catherine Austin Fitts for being with us today.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you.
Do you hear the sound of a bell? Did you wish your family well? Times ain't the same in the neighborhood. Got the parents all going through hell, 'cause the guns keep flying off the shelf. Do you see the